Kuroniko and Ryota had been childhood friends who spent a lot of time together when they were young. One night, exactly 10 years earlier, Kuroniko and Ryota went out to look at the stars using a telescope. Kuroniko even claimed that she had seen an alien the day before. That night later became something Ryota deeply regretted. He believed he had made two serious mistakes. The first was not turning back at the right moment when he slipped while they were walking near a tall wall. The second mistake was grabbing Kuroniko's hand, which caused both of them to fall. Since that day, Ryota often spent his nights staring at the sky through a telescope, hoping that he might somehow see Kuroniko again. When he reached 11th grade in high school, Ryota planned to become part of a NASA research program. He wanted to get as close to space as possible and prove that aliens truly existed in the place Kuroniko had once described. He believed that this was the only way to atone for his mistake toward her. As a child, Kuroniko had firmly believed in the existence of aliens because she claimed to have encountered one herself, and she even said that she knew where they were. Ryota once asked Kuroniko to take him to that place, and she agreed on the condition that he would not tell anyone else about it. After that, Kuroniko led Ryota through a forest to a certain location. They had always played together, and Ryota genuinely liked Kuroniko. He thought he knew everything about her. However, when the topic of aliens first came up, Ryota could not immediately bring himself to believe her. When they arrived at their destination, Kuroniko said that the alien was there and that Ryota would believe her once he saw it. That was the day the tragic incident happened. Ryota later woke up in a hospital, and it was considered a miracle that he had survived the fall. Medical staff informed him that Kuroniko was also safe and receiving treatment at another hospital. Ryota then began to think about what he should say so that Kuroniko could forgive him. He felt that if he had believed in her story right away, she might have felt less alone. One day, as Ryota was about to be discharged from the hospital, he learned the truth. Kuroniko had fallen from a dam and had passed away instantly. Upon hearing this, Ryota broke down in overwhelming grief, and the medical staff tried to calm him. Ryota could no longer remember Kuroniko's real name. The only thing he clearly remembered was a small mole under her arm, and he kept calling out to her name in despair. One morning at school, Ryota's classmates informed him that he had achieved the highest score in the 11th grade mock exams. Ryota was confused because he believed he had only ranked third. Risa mentioned that Ryota was actually the top student that year. Ryota simply thanked her. His classmates wondered why Ryota always seemed distant toward girls. In reality, he was not being cold, he simply did not know how to interact with them. Not long after, a teacher entered the classroom and asked everyone to return to their seats. The teacher brought in a transfer student and introduced her to the class. The students were surprised, as transferring schools was known to be very difficult. When Ryota saw the new student, he was shocked. The teacher introduced her as Kuroha Neko. Ryota could hardly believe it, as the new student looked exactly like Kuroniko. He began to wonder whether Neko might actually be Kuroniko, especially since he had never seen Kuroniko's body. Ryota asked if Neko was truly alive, which shocked everyone in the classroom. Neko stated that it was the first time she had ever met Ryota. Ryota denied this and insisted that they had been childhood friends, assuming that she might not remember him. He was convinced that Neko was his childhood friend and claimed that he could prove it. But his words came out in an inappropriate and impulsive way. The entire class was stunned by his behavior. Ryota quickly realized that he had gone too far, and Neko reacted by striking him in anger. After that incident, his classmates began to think that Ryota had lost his mind from studying too much. Meanwhile, the girls gathered around Neko and complimented her uniform. Ryota began to suspect that he had mistaken her for someone else. Later, during swimming class, Ryota's class practiced diving in the pool. Some students made inappropriate comments, which made Ryota uncomfortable and upset. When Neko entered the pool, she suddenly panicked and was quickly helped by other students. She lay weakly by the side of the pool while teachers and students made sure she was safe. Soon after, it was Risa's turn to practice diving. Unexpectedly, the pool's drain cover had come loose, and Risa's leg was pulled into the opening, leaving her unable to free herself. She struggled to hold her breath while the female teacher instructed others to alert the pool staff to shut down the pump. The teacher entered the pool to rescue Risa and kept trying to pull her free. However, it became increasingly dangerous as Risa's strength faded. Neko had already sensed that something terrible was going to happen that day. She believed that two students were destined to lose their lives. Suddenly, a powerful vibration cracked the edge of the pool, and Risa was finally freed. The teacher felt immense relief knowing that Risa had survived. It was considered a miracle that Risa had been saved, as such incidents were extremely rare at that school. That afternoon, Ryota stepped off the bus and walked toward the observation room. For him, gazing at the stars in the sky was the best way to release the exhaustion of the day. As he prepared to look up at the night sky, he realized that he still could not accept Kuroniko's passing. He knew very well that Naoko was not Kuroniko because Kuroniko had died. Even though 10 years had passed, Ryota still struggled to face that reality and refused to truly acknowledge that Kuroniko was gone. Deep down, he wished he could erase all memories of her. Not long after, Naoko suddenly appeared, startling him. She asked whether the stars could be seen clearly from that place. Ryota explained that he was currently the only member of the astronomy club. The previous year, there had still been a senior student, but if no one joined the following year, he planned to disband the club. Ryota admitted that Naoko truly resembled his childhood friend, which was why he had said something strange in class earlier that morning. He also mentioned that his childhood friend had been a young girl who believed in the existence of aliens, and that she had died because of a mistake he had made. For that reason, Ryota continued searching for aliens through his telescope. Naoko firmly stated that she did not know Ryota's childhood friend at all, and that she had only met him that morning. She explained that she had come to inform him that 2 students at the school were destined to die. The first had been the person trapped in the pool earlier that day, but had survived, while the second was Ryota himself. Ryota was confused by her words and questioned why she would say such a thing. Naoko explained that Ryota had to take the last bus, and if he did not, he would die. Ryota wondered why he should trust such a prediction. Naoko continued urging him to take the bus, while Ryota responded that she did not need to tell him that, because if he did not take the bus, he would not be able to go home anyway. Naoko then noticed a painting of constellations and asked how many constellations were shown there. Ryota pointed to the list displayed in the room. Naoko immediately began counting them one by one, but Ryota stopped her and explained that there were 6 rows and 8 columns, making a total of 48. Naoko praised him for being able to calculate so quickly. Ryota found that reaction strange, since he had only multiplied the numbers in a simple way. Naoko then asked what multiplication was. Ryota was shocked and asked whether she had not studied multiplication in school. Naoko admitted that she knew about multiplication, but could not remember how it worked. Ryota tested her with several basic multiplication problems, only to find that she became confused and answered incorrectly. He truly could not understand how a student who did not remember multiplication tables had been admitted to the same school. Naoko explained that she had her own reasons and stated that she was extremely strong. Ryota wondered whether she might be an athlete, but Naoko denied it. He was puzzled by her confidence and assumed that there was no way he could lose to an untrained girl. Ryota then challenged her to an arm strength contest. To his surprise, Naoko defeated him almost instantly, leaving him in noticeable discomfort. She apologized, explaining that she had not meant to use that much strength. Ryota examined Naoko's arm out of curiosity and was confused by what he felt. Her arm did not appear particularly muscular and felt soft, yet it clearly held immense power. Naoko became visibly embarrassed by the situation and admitted that she was not used to such close attention, which made her nervous. Ryota quickly realized the awkwardness and clarified that he had no inappropriate intentions. He admitted to himself that Naoko was indeed beautiful and strongly resembled Kuroniko. At Ryota's request, Naoko tensed her arm again so he could better understand her strength. Even then, he could not comprehend how he had lost so easily to someone who appeared so physically gentle. Naoko commented that Ryota simply seemed weak. Shortly afterward, she received a signal from her old-fashioned radio. Ryota was stunned when he heard Naoko mention that it seemed they had decided to let him die. Moments later, Naoko told him that it appeared he would be fine even if he did not take the bus after all. Ryota grew increasingly curious about what Naoko had heard through the radio. She advised that if he missed the bus, he should stay overnight at the observation site. Naoko asked him to trust her, reminding him that she had already warned him. Her words strongly reminded Ryota of something Kuroniko had once said. After that, Naoko quickly left. Ryota began to reflect on everything Naoko had told him. If her words were true, then taking or not taking the bus was the difference between life and death. He also thought that if her prediction was accurate, heavy rain should fall soon. However, the weather forecast had predicted clear skies, so rain seemed impossible. Contrary to expectations, a sudden downpour began. Walking through the heavy rain, Naoko managed to save both Risa and Ryota that day. As she moved forward, she recalled the time when Akane had been trapped beneath rubble. Back then, Akane had urged Naoko to run, entrusting her with something important and asking her never to forget it. Akane had believed that Naoko was the only one capable of saving the world from destruction. Even now, Naoko did not fully understand what it meant to save the world, but she knew that she could save people who were about to die. Not long after, Naoko's radio reported that Ryota had not followed her earlier instructions. At that time, Ryota deliberately let the bus pass and chose not to stay overnight in the observation room. It seemed that he wanted to test Naoko's words. If what Naoko had said was true, then Ryota believed he would die. He wondered whether he could truly trust her, yet he still wanted to confirm her warning, even if his own life was at risk. Ryota considered the possible dangers. He thought about whether he might be attacked by criminals in such a deserted place, or if a large-scale disaster like an earthquake could happen, which would surely cause many victims. Unexpectedly, a cliff near him suddenly collapsed and crashed down onto him. The landslide buried his legs and left him unable to move. Not long after that, a massive rock rolled down from above, heading straight toward him. At that moment, Ryota realized that Neko really could see the future. Fortunately, she arrived just in time and stopped the huge rock using her power. The rock was shattered and thrown into the river. Neko immediately scolded Ryota for ignoring her warning. Ryota was still in disbelief after witnessing her split such a massive rock with ease. Neko admitted that she had known Ryota would die if he missed the bus, which was why she had warned him. However, when Ryota decided to chase the bus instead, her vision of the future changed. Ryota then understood that if he had boarded the bus, it would have stopped briefly, and the falling rock would have struck the bus instead, causing many more casualties. That was the reason Neko had told him to stay in the observation room. Neko was confused about why Ryota still chose to leave even though he understood the warning. On the other hand, Ryota began to question who Neko truly was. She claimed that she was a witch, but Ryota found it hard to believe. Neko found his reaction strange, especially since he was willing to believe in aliens. Ryota did not actually want to believe her, but if she was not a witch, then none of what he had seen could be explained. Ryota asked how Neko could possess such incredible power. In response, she showed him that her body had been altered through medical procedures and experimental drugs, which shocked him deeply. Neko admitted that she never wanted to use her power. She had escaped from researchers and did not want anyone to know that she was a witch. Deep in his heart, Ryota still hoped that Neko might be Kuroniko. However, Neko did not have the distinctive mole that Kuroniko had, making it clear that she was not the person he was hoping for. Neko did not want anyone to find out that she was a witch, because if she were ever captured, her life would be taken. She begged Ryota not to tell anyone about it. Neko then walked away, and when Ryota called out to her, she asked him not to come near her again. She said that she was not the childhood friend he remembered, but merely a stranger. When Ryota and Kuroniko were still children, they often spent time watching constellations together. Kuroniko truly enjoyed gazing at the beautiful star-filled sky. The following week, their school had planned a field trip to the sea. Ryota knew that Kuroniko had never seen the ocean before, so he was sure she would be excited about the trip. However, she denied it, even though she had secretly prepared a swim ring in anticipation of swimming in the sea. Unfortunately, Kuroniko passed away before she ever had the chance to see the ocean. Ryota had dreamed about those childhood memories many times since then. Ryota woke up from his sleep and immediately went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. His thoughts were still stuck on Kuroniko. Sadly, Neko did not have the same beauty mark that Kuroniko once had, yet he still could not fully shake the feeling that they might be connected somehow. From that moment on, Ryota decided to learn more about Neko. That day, Neko did not come to school. The teacher asked Ryota to deliver a transfer form to her and told him it had to be returned the next day. The teacher mentioned that Neko seemed to live somewhere near the observatory. In addition, the teacher also entrusted Ryota with the field trip guide for the upcoming trip next week. After school, Ryota set out to find Neko's address. However, after walking for quite a while, he could not find any houses in the area. Not long after, several vehicles from the defense forces passed by. Ryota did not understand what they were doing there, and he wondered if something serious had happened. At the same time, he noticed two girls being detained inside one of the vehicles. It turned out that the address the teacher had given him was merely a scenic viewpoint. If the lab were searching for her, Neko would never have given her real location. Ryota then noticed a village nearby. That village was supposed to have been submerged in the past, but the dam project had been cancelled. Without hesitation, Ryota climbed over the fence and entered the village. He suddenly heard Neko's voice singing. Following the sound, he found her hanging laundry outside. Ryota greeted her, which startled Neko. She became visibly embarrassed when she realized he had come to see her. Neko asked why he was there, and Ryota explained that the teacher had asked him to deliver the transfer form, which needed to be returned the next day. Neko said she no longer needed the form, because the person who was supposed to lose her life had survived, so there was no reason for her to attend school anymore. Ryota was confused and wondered if that was the only reason she had transferred to his school. Neko then admitted that she had always been curious about what school was like, and that she truly wanted to experience it. For 10 years, she had been kept in a lab as a subject of magical experiments and was never allowed to learn anything. Ryota begged Neko to come back to school the next day, but instead she asked him to leave because she felt he was disturbing her. Ryota then asked why Neko had saved him before. Neko explained that she could not allow someone to lose their life if she had the power to prevent it. Ryota said he felt the same way. He did not want Neko to be captured or harmed by the lab, especially since he was not convinced she could survive on her own, considering she did not even understand basic multiplication. Neko felt offended and insisted that multiplication tables were useless in that era. Shortly after, a voice could be heard from inside the house, sounding like someone asking for help. Neko denied it, even though the voice was clearly audible. Ryota was confused as to why she would lie like that. Neko insisted she was not lying and claimed that the sound did not come from a person. Ryota did not believe her and tried to intervene, but Neko stopped him using her power. She then asked him to leave. Ryota decided to comply, but when he reached the village gate, he suddenly remembered the field trip guide. Since the trip location was near the sea, it reminded him of Kuroneko. He wondered why he could not stop thinking about Neko, even after being pushed away. Ryota questioned whether it was because Neko resembled Kuroneko, or because a part of him still believed Kuroneko might somehow still exist. Ryota quietly returned to Neko's house, careful not to be seen. He believed that if Neko noticed him, she might see him as someone with bad intentions. From outside, Ryota overheard Neko speaking to someone else. She explained that she had been forced to scold Ryota because they were not allowed to befriend anyone. If she became close to him, his life would also be put in danger. She added that she would not live much longer, so it was better for her not to form any bonds at all. Ryota was shocked and did not understand what she meant by not having much time left. Neko said that until that day came, she would continue doing things that others could not. It was then time for the person living with her to take medication, so Neko went to get some water. As soon as Neko left the room, Ryota quietly slipped inside. He was curious about who she had been talking to earlier, especially since he had not heard a single response from the other person. For a moment, he even wondered if Neko had been talking to herself. To his surprise, Ryota found a young girl lying on the bed. He wondered what had happened to her, why she was not moving, and whether she was still alive, as her appearance was eerily still. Ryota wondered whether the girl was nothing more than a doll shaped like a human, so he tried to touch her to make sure. Suddenly, Neko appeared and explained that Kana was actually alive. Ryota was startled and apologized, saying that he only wanted to confirm what he was seeing. Neko then explained that Kana was also a witch experiment, but her body had become paralyzed as a result. In exchange, Kana had gained an extraordinary ability. Ryota asked whether Kana possessed the power to see the future. It turned out that she truly could. Kana was unable to speak, but she could move the fingers of her left hand. Because of that, she used a keyboard to communicate with Neko. The sound Ryota had heard earlier was not a human voice, but the sound produced by a machine. Kana suddenly typed a message, calling Ryota inappropriate for sneaking into her room and labeling him a hypocritical stalker. She questioned why she had saved someone like him, especially since in her earlier vision, Ryota was supposed to be involved in a fatal accident. Neko apologized to Ryota, explaining that Kana's words often sounded harsh. Kana then informed Neko that the people from the laboratory had captured Kanad. At the same time, Kanad had been taken together with Maki. Neko was shocked to learn this. Kanad had been in the same laboratory as Neko and Kana, and all three of them had escaped together in the past. Neko wanted to rescue Kanad, but Kana explained that it was not possible. She also said that she already knew what would happen next, and they did not even know the laboratory's location. Kana urged Neko to think calmly. Neko broke down in tears. Ryota tried to comfort her, but Neko asked him to leave and never come back. Ryota quietly left Neko's house. After that, Neko could only cry. Kana told her that there was still something she could do, which was to go to school and enjoy her time for the sake of both of them. Neko did not understand what Kana meant. According to Kana, their time left in the world was not long, so at the very least, Neko should try to enjoy it. Kana also told Neko not to worry about her, explaining that without Neko, she would have died long ago. She was deeply grateful to Neko. The next day, Neko went to high school. That day, the class was having a Japanese history lesson. The teacher read part of a historical passage and then asked Neko to continue reading. Neko was instantly startled, her face turning red from nervousness. Ryota began to wonder whether Neko might not be able to read very well. When Neko tried to read the book she was holding, it became clear that she could not read kanji properly. The entire class was shocked. Ryota quickly stepped in to help. He claimed that he was feeling unwell and asked Neko to accompany him to the student infirmary. Neko immediately grabbed her radio and followed Ryota out of the classroom. As they walked down the stairs, Ryota admitted that he did not understand how Naoko had been able to enroll in that school. After seeing what happened in class, he felt that she might eventually be exposed. Naoko could not read kanji properly and did not even understand multiplication tables. Ryota suggested that they should avoid returning to class for the time being. Naoko explained that she had already submitted her enrollment form. Ryota then asked whether she had read the guide for the upcoming school trip. He mentioned that the class would be going to the sea the following week. Naoko admitted that she did not know whether she would be joining the trip or not. Ryota immediately asked for her reason. Naoko was confused about why Ryota cared so much about her situation. Ryota explained that when he was younger, a childhood friend of his had always wanted to see the ocean. By taking Naoko to the sea, he felt that he could finally fulfill that old wish in some way. Not long after that, Kana contacted Naoko and informed her that someone at a curry shop near the station would die in 15 minutes. Naoko immediately ran toward the location, with Ryota following closely behind. According to the vision, the victim was supposed to be a woman wearing red who would be hit by a car. They ran as fast as they could. A woman on a bicycle nearly collided with them and scolded them for running in the street. Naoko and Ryota apologized quickly and continued running. Unfortunately, the 15 minutes passed, and they saw that a car had crashed into the curry shop. Naoko felt devastated because they had arrived too late to prevent the accident. She believed that if they had run just a little faster, they might have been able to save someone. Ryota realized that what Naoko was feeling was the burden of knowing an accident would happen, but being unable to stop it. In her heart, it felt as though she had caused the tragedy herself. Soon after, people around the scene began saying that it was fortunate no one had been hurt in the accident. They explained that the driver had suffered a sudden problem while driving, but luckily there had been no pedestrians nearby. Ryota and Naoko were confused about why there were no victims. They wondered whether Kana's vision had been wrong. When Ryota noticed the woman in red who had nearly collided with them earlier, he finally understood. The person who was supposed to be hit by the car was likely that woman, but the timing of the accident had changed because she had stopped in the road earlier when she almost ran into Naoko and Ryota. If not for them, she might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Naoko felt deeply relieved and grateful that no one had lost their life. Meanwhile, Kanad was being held captive by the lab personnel. She asked them to release Maki, but it turned out that anyone who had witnessed Kanad's magic was never allowed to live freely afterward. The researchers questioned her about the whereabouts of the other witches. Kanad explained that she did not know, since she had been separated from the others during their escape. When Kanad was about to be removed from the facility, she desperately wished to stay alive and promised that she would not try to escape again. However, the lab staff proceeded with the process anyway. In a very short moment, Kanad's body dissolved, leaving nothing behind. The head of research, a man named Shisato, then ordered his subordinates to immediately track down the remaining witches. The next day, Kana mentioned that she was feeling extremely hungry. Naoko was also hungry and planned to go into the mountains to look for food. Kana complained because she no longer wanted to eat herbal plants. Suddenly, Ryota arrived carrying food. Naoko was overjoyed since she had been starving at the time. Ryota had brought yakisoba and cake. Ryota wondered whether Kana could eat as well. Kana was unable to chew, but she could still swallow. Naoko showed the cake to Kana, and Kana became incredibly happy, especially because she had not eaten anything like that for 10 years. Ryota felt confident that Naoko and Kana had never tasted food like this before. Naoko immediately put the cake into a blender, which shocked Ryota. Kana felt uneasy seeing such a beautiful cake being blended. Although the house had electricity, it did not have gas, so Naoko usually cooked using firewood. After Naoko fed the blended cake to Kana, Kana indicated that she wanted to save some of it for later. Ryota then mentioned that the cake had actually been his portion. Unexpectedly, Naoko was taken aback and began to cry. Ryota did not understand why Naoko reacted that way, but he decided to give up his share of the cake for them. Ryota could not understand why he felt like he wanted to stay in that place forever. Perhaps it was because Naoko reminded him of Kuroniko. That night, Ryota prepared to leave. Naoko expressed her gratitude to him, and Ryota said that he would bring more food for them again. Not long after that, Naoko mentioned that she might be joining the summer school trip. She explained that she had not seen the ocean in a very long time. She also said that she would try to adjust herself to life at school. Ryota then noticed that Naoko's nose was bleeding. The blood flowed heavily, causing him to panic. The following day, Naoko did not go to school. Classmates talked among themselves about Naoko, who had been absent frequently even though she was a transfer student. Not long after, Naoko finally showed up at school with bandages covering her body. Everyone was confused and wondered what had happened to her. When Ryota asked about her condition, Naoko explained that she had only been dealing with a fever. Ryota did not fully believe that explanation. Naoko insisted that she was still fine and even claimed she could go to the beach, yet she never explained the real reason behind her injuries. The next day, Naoko was absent again. Ryota immediately went to her house, and just as he expected, he heard Kana's mechanical voice repeatedly calling out Naoko's name. Ryota rushed to Naoko's room and found her collapsed and badly weakened. He carefully lifted her and tried to understand what was truly going on. Naoko asked him to bring her to the kitchen. There she took a pill from a cabinet. Witches were required to take a death-delaying medicine every day in order to survive. If they failed to take the pill for more than 30 hours, their bodies would begin to break down, and several hours later, it would result in death. Naoko only had 10 pills left, which was just enough for her and Kana to last 5 days. Ryota could not believe that Naoko had waited until the very last moment to take the medicine. She had endured it for as long as she could, but she admitted that she would not be able to join the school trip scheduled for 8 days later. Ryota blamed himself for inviting Naoko to the beach. Naoko asked him not to dwell on it, explaining that she would be fine after taking the pill. She also told him not to feel guilty, because she had genuinely wanted to see the ocean for a long time. After that, Ryota went to Kana's room and explained that Naoko had fallen asleep in the kitchen. He then asked where the pills came from. Kana explained that the medicine could only be obtained from the laboratory where they had been created, but she did not know its location. Since she only had 5 days left to live, she asked Ryota to bring them cake during those remaining days. Not long after, Naoko woke up and wanted to clean herself. She heated water for a bath and later approached Ryota, who was chopping firewood outside. Naoko told him that she felt fine after taking the death-delaying medicine. Ryota explained that Kana had asked him to prepare the firewood, but Naoko pointed out that they did not need that much. Ryota could not accept the idea of Naoko and Kana dying like that, and he wished he could somehow obtain more pills. Suddenly, smoke began to rise from Naoko's house. Ryota panicked and asked what had happened. Naoko explained that the smoke came from boiling water earlier. Ryota told her to deal with the kitchen while he went to get Kana out. Kana, confused by the smoke filling her room, was quickly carried out by Ryota, who carefully supported her as he brought her outside. Ryota returned to Naoko while carrying Kana. Naoko apologized to Kana, explaining that all of the remaining pills had been destroyed. Kana began to weaken rapidly, and Naoko broke down, blaming herself. Kana asked Naoko not to worry, calmly accepting that her end would simply come sooner. She even asked Naoko to end her life quickly, so she would not have to suffer later. Ryota tried to reassure both of them, believing that everything could still be fixed. He explained that they only needed to obtain the medicine from its creator, the Dresden pharmaceutical company at the Takayama factory. Ryota recalled the code printed on the medicine. The letters DR stood for the pharmaceutical company, the number 623 indicated the drug type, and the letter G represented the Takayama factory. Naoko wondered if it was normal to know such detailed information. Ryota explained that he had read about it in a book before. His memory was unusually strong, allowing him to remember everything he had seen even after only one glance, which could be considered a special ability. Unfortunately, that ability also meant he could not forget things he wished he could erase, and that was often painful. Naoko believed, however, that this pain was still better than forgetting something truly important. Ryota then suggested that they search for the location of the medicine and the factory together. He planned to use the computer in the observatory room. As they headed there, Ryota asked whether Naoko could use her power to move Kana. Naoko explained that it was impossible for her. Her ability was designed to destroy things, and she could not control it when touching a person. It was the same reason she had once overpowered Ryota in an arm wrestling match, and it was fortunate that his arm had not been seriously damaged. After arriving at the observatory room, Ryota began looking for information about the death delay medicine, but unfortunately, he could not find anything about the pill. He had no idea where the factory was located exactly, but he knew that taking a bus or train would eventually lead there. The real problem was the security system at the factory. Kana suggested asking Kazumi for help. Kazumi was a friend of Kana and Naoko, and they had escaped together in the past. Kazumi was highly skilled with anything related to the internet, and Naoko had managed to enter the school thanks to Kazumi's help. If they asked Kazumi, she might be able to disable the factory's security system. However, Kazumi's help always came at a high price. Ryota found it strange that even though Kazumi was Naoko's friend, payment was still required. It turned out that Kazumi was not asking for money, but for death delay pills as compensation. Ryota realized that this was no different from Naoko trading her life to ask for help. He also understood that this meant Neko and Kana were risking their lives just to help him. At that moment, they had no pills left, and to pay Kazumi, they would have to split the stolen pills. Neko immediately contacted Kazumi, explaining her concern that continued communication might lead to them being captured. Neko asked for help, and Kazumi requested pills as payment. Neko explained that she was going to the death delay pill factory and promised to pay once she obtained the pills. Kazumi quickly understood that Neko wanted her to shut down the factory's security system. Kazumi showed interest, but only if she received half of the pills Neko planned to steal. Hearing that condition, Ryota thought Kazumi was being greedy. Kazumi was surprised to hear Ryota's voice and questioned why Neko was involving an outsider in such a dangerous matter, especially since involving others could lead to serious consequences. Ryota admitted that he was already aware of the risks. He then asked whether Kazumi was truly capable of disabling the security system. Kazumi reacted confidently, suggesting that her abilities allowed her to do things far beyond what normal people could manage. Ryota worried that such power could cause even bigger problems. Suddenly, Kana warned Neko that if she went any further, she would be targeted and face a fatal outcome. Kana strongly opposed Neko going to the factory. Meanwhile, one of Chisato's subordinates, Korofuku, reported that someone was investigating the code related to the death delay pills. That person was disguising their IP address, entering as an anonymous user, and using an overseas proxy. Chisato stated that capturing all the witches would bring everything to an end. He then ordered Saori to eliminate every witch who had escaped without exception. Chisato made it clear that failure would not be tolerated. At that time, Neko questioned why she was destined to die. Kana explained that Saori would ambush her at the factory. Saori was a witch ranked AA. The highest witch rank was AAA, while the lowest was C. Neko, Kana, and Kazumi were ranked B or lower. Neko concluded that they were being discarded because they were considered failures. Saori was capable of using A-class magic, which they could not defeat. Ryota asked about the accuracy of Kana's future visions. Neko explained that when rounded, Kana's visions were always correct, but the future could still change if they took action. Kana explained that if her vision was incorrect, she would see a new future, and if she saw nothing at all, it meant the future would remain unchanged. Neko pointed out that because they now knew an ambush was coming, they had a chance to change the future. However, Ryota worried that if the enemy knew Neko was coming, the lab staff might already have moved the pills. Ryota asked Kazumi to give pills to Neko and Kana. Kazumi was confused by this request and questioned whether Ryota wanted her condition to worsen even faster. Kana believed that the lab would not let them live anyway, so there was no reason for them to bother relocating the pills. Ryota then asked what kind of magic Saori used. Kana explained that Saori's ability was cutting-type magic, allowing her to cut anything within a 6-meter radius. Saori was equipped with a harness system, and if she tried to escape, it would trigger an ejection process that would result in her death. Neko then explained that the harness had 3 buttons. The lower right button was the hang-up function, which would cause a witch to lose her abilities over several days. The lower left button was the eject function, which would immediately end a witch's life. Magic had no effect on the harness itself. The third button's function was unknown, and they had only been told that it was worse than death. Because of that, no one dared to press it. Kana spoke again about her future vision and, after considering their plan, once more tried to stop Neko from going to the factory. Neko asked whether Ryota would also die, and Kana stated that Ryota would likely survive. Hearing that, Neko became determined to go to the factory, fully believing their plan would succeed. Ryota thought that if Neko died, everything would lose its meaning. Kana asked Ryota to make sure Neko did not use too much magic, because doing so would activate Neko's harness hang-up function. In addition, using her powers would cause Neko to lose something very precious to her. Neko promised to bring pills back for Kana. Neko and Ryota then prepared to leave, and Kazumi reminded them to be careful. At the same time, Kazumi's body was covered in blood. She had completely run out of pills, but she was not allowed to die before the operation scheduled for 12 o'clock. Kazumi placed all her hopes on Neko's success. Neko and Ryota boarded a train. During the ride, Neko was writing something but did not let Ryota see it. Ryota believed she was drawing, since he knew that Neko was not very good at writing. That night, they arrived at the factory as planned. Neko was supposed to break through the front entrance to draw Saori's attention, while Ryota would slip in through the back and make his way towards Saori to deactivate her harness. When Neko confronted Saori, she deliberately caused a commotion so that Ryota could locate her position more easily. Before entering the factory, Neko had asked Ryota to read the letter she left for him once he was inside. Right at midnight, the operation began. Not long after that, the sound of an explosion echoed through the building, and Ryota immediately moved to carry out his mission. As he advanced inside, he read Neko's letter. At the same time, Kana told Kazumi that she could not see any future ahead. She explained that if things continued like this, Neko would die, and she wondered if Neko had planned this outcome from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Sori noticed Neko's arrival and mocked her for entering through the front door. She dismissed Neko as a powerless witch who could not kill anyone and declared her intent to end the fight in a brutal way. In her letter, Neko explained that she would keep Sori distracted. She asked Ryota to find the pills and escape as quickly as possible. She specifically told him not to try to save her, believing that her life would be more meaningful if it could help Kana and Kazumi survive. As Ryota read on, he realized that Neko had intended from the start to use herself as bait. Even so, Ryota refused to accept the idea of letting Neko die. At that same moment, Kana was shocked when a new vision appeared before her eyes. In it, she saw that Ryota would also lose his life. Back at the confrontation, Sori activated her cutting magic, narrowly missing Neko. Neko pleaded with Sori to stop and questioned why they had to keep trying to destroy each other. Sori's attack tore through Neko's clothing, and when Neko dropped an object from above, Sori managed to destroy it before it could have any effect. Soon after, Ryota reached the place where Sori and Neko were fighting. Sori managed to injure Neko's leg, and Neko tried to counterattack with her magic. However, Neko's harness immediately activated, cutting off her powers and leaving her unable to fight back. Ryota was stunned when he noticed a small mole near Neko's underarm. In that instant, he realized the truth. Neko was Kuroniko. Overcome with emotion, Ryota broke down in tears, relieved that Kuroniko was still alive. He grabbed a metal bar and prepared to help her. Confused as to why Neko did not seem to remember him at all, Ryota then understood that Neko's most precious possession had been her memories. He made up his mind to create new memories with her to replace the ones that had been lost. When Neko saw Ryota approaching, she was confused by his actions and wondered why he was coming closer instead of running away. At that moment, Sori used her cutting magic again, striking Neko repeatedly and overwhelming her. Ryota witnessed everything unfold before his eyes. He was consumed by guilt at the thought of losing Kuroniko once more, and he refused to accept that fate without a struggle. Sori managed to severely injure Neko's body, and at that moment Ryota immediately struck Sori from behind, aiming for her heart. He pressured Sori to rewind time. Earlier, Kana had informed Ryota that Sori possessed another ability, which was time manipulation, allowing her to rewind time by several minutes. Ryota believed that Sori had no other option but to use that ability. However, unexpectedly, Sori retaliated by using her cutting magic against Ryota. Sori weakened due to the injury and was shocked that a human would dare do something like that to her. She hesitated over whether she should rewind time. Rewinding would consume a large amount of her magic energy, but if she did nothing, she would not survive. In the end, Sori chose to rewind time. After that, she entered a shutdown state. Neko informed Ryota that this was their chance to capture Sori, since Sori could no longer use her magic. Sori tried to run away from Ryota, but ended up falling. Meanwhile, Korofuku informed Chisato that Sori was currently shut down, and Chisato dismissed Sori as useless. Ryota and Neko successfully secured Sori, as the time manipulation had drained her energy and left her unable to move for a while. Ryota asked whether Sori had truly rewound time and questioned what had happened before. He was certain that Sori still remembered everything, even though he and Neko did not. Ryota became visibly nervous when he noticed that part of Neko's chest was slightly exposed, causing his face to flush as he felt he might have forgotten something important. Sori stated that her role was over, and that she would soon be disposed of due to her failure. Neko urged Sori to admit that she had killed her, but Sori explained that such a lie would not deceive the lab staff, since they had ordered her to bring back Neko's harness. Ryota began to wonder whether the harness was truly that valuable to the lab and questioned whether its meaning went beyond simple restraint. Neko suggested that Sori should escape, but Sori explained that it was impossible. The beacon inside her harness continuously transmitted her location, and if she left the factory, the lab would remotely eliminate her. Ryota wanted to try removing the beacon, but Sori believed it would be extremely difficult. Ryota insisted that they had to do something because Sori's life was on the line. Sori realized that it was too early to give up, especially since Ryota and Neko were no longer in top condition, meaning she could potentially overpower them without magic. As Ryota approached to inspect the beacon on Sori's body, it suddenly detached, and its lower left button had already been pressed. In an instant, Sori's body dissolved. Ryota questioned whether there was truly nothing they could do. Nako's eyes filled with tears as she acknowledged that there was no way to save Saori at that moment. She could not understand why Saori was eliminated even though she had not left the factory. Ryota quickly suggested that they search for the pills. Shortly afterward, a strange parasite-like creature appeared near what remained of Saori's body. Ryota reacted in shock and immediately crushed it. Nako could not comprehend what the lab had actually done to the bodies of the witches. At that moment, Ryota realized that the word harness might not mean restraint, but instead sounded like her nest, implying that a woman herself was considered a nest. Ryota and Nako searched everywhere for the pills and managed to find only 2 boxes. After that, they boarded the train again, allowing Nako to extend her life. Nako desperately hoped that Kana was still holding on. Ryota asked when Kana had last taken a death delay pill, and Nako explained that Kana had taken her last dose the day before yesterday. A witch would not survive if she went more than 35 hours without taking the pill. Upon arriving at the observation room, Ryota and Nako rushed inside. Nako broke down in tears when she saw Kana lying weak and covered in blood, repeatedly calling out to her. Kazumi then pointed out that Kana would not be able to respond unless the keyboard was placed near her hand. Nako questioned why Kazumi was there, and Kazumi explained that she had only 1 death delay pill left and had endured until her body nearly dissolved before taking it. She could not give that pill to Kana, but she also could not bear the thought of Kana dying and haunting her. As a compromise, she split the pill in half and consumed part of it herself. Nako placed Kana's hand on the keyboard. Kana expressed her disbelief that Nako and Ryota had succeeded, since her last vision showed both of them dying, leading her to believe they were already gone. Tears fell as Kana felt grateful to see them alive again, and Nako felt overwhelming relief knowing that Kana had survived. Ryota reflected that he and Nako might have indeed died as Kana had foreseen, but time had been rewound because of Saori. Kazumi then told Ryota to give the pill to Kana. Ryota hoped Kana would acknowledge his efforts and the risk he took to obtain the pill, but instead Kana asked him not to act like a show-off. Kazumi then took the remaining half of the stolen pill, which irritated Ryota. Kazumi simply stated that business was business before leaving the observation room. Nako did not object as this had been their agreement from the beginning. Ryota reassured Nako not to worry and mentioned that the place was now only occupied by him, also informing her that there was food downstairs. Before Ryota left, Nako thanked him. As Ryota walked away, he could not get her voice out of his head, since it was the first time Nako had ever called him by his name. That moment caused him to break down in tears as it reminded him of Kuroniko. The next day, Ryota and Nako joined the school field trip. They visited several historical landmarks and later went to the beach. While they were there, Ryota noticed that Nako seemed lost in thought and wondered why she looked so distant. Nako had always wanted to see the ocean, yet even while standing in front of such a beautiful view, she felt an unexpected ache in her heart. Even though Nako was not Kuroniko, Ryota felt happy that he could finally show her the sea. On the following day at school, Nako was asked by the teacher to solve a math problem on the blackboard, and she managed to do it well. Nako was not unintelligent, she simply lacked basic knowledge, and even at that point, she still did not fully understand multiplication tables. From then on, she began to study seriously and made steady progress at school. Meanwhile, Ryota could not stop thinking about something that seemed to disappear whenever Nako used her powers. He gradually realized that what was being lost might be Nako's memories. After school, Ryota asked Nako and Kana to stay in the observatory room. Since Nako's house had completely burned down, there was nowhere else for her to go. He also suggested that Nako join the astronomy club, explaining that the club's activities involved observing the stars every night, which would make it reasonable for her to stay overnight there. Nako then wondered about Kana's situation, and Ryota explained that if anyone unexpectedly showed up, Kana could remain hidden in a safe place. Nako felt uneasy knowing that if she and Kana were discovered, Ryota could also be put in danger for being involved with them. Ryota reassured her and explained that he had already considered the worst possible outcome. He no longer cared what might happen to him, because to him, Nako and Kana had already saved his life. As they walked home together, Nako reflected on what it meant to trust someone. In Ryota's view, a person he trusted was someone who would never deliberately betray that trust. Nako then handed him a small object that she believed to be a strange life form, something like a fertilized alien egg. Elsewhere, Kazumi stayed close to Kana. She understood that Kana must feel bored while Nako was at school. Although Kana did feel lonely at times, she noticed that Nako looked genuinely happy while studying, and she did not want to become a burden to her. Kazumi checked whether Kana felt hungry, but it turned out that Nako always made sure Kana had breakfast every day, so she was fine. Kazumi made a careless remark about Kana's situation, which made Kana clearly uncomfortable and defensive. Not long after that, Neko and Ryota arrived and were surprised to see Kazumi there. Kazumi explained that she simply wanted to check on Kana and then decided to move with them to the observatory. Later, Ryota suggested that Neko take a bath to rest and refresh herself. The facility they used was shared, but strict rules and boundaries were still in place. An unexpected series of misunderstandings followed, caused mostly by Kazumi's impulsive behavior and poor timing. The situation quickly became awkward rather than dangerous, leaving Ryota flustered and embarrassed. During the confusion, Ryota accidentally bumped into Neko, which startled both of them. Realizing the situation immediately, he apologized and stepped back. Neko felt strange afterward, unable to explain why her heart was suddenly racing, and she chose to leave to calm herself down. Ryota was left feeling deeply regretful, realizing that his lack of focus had caused unnecessary discomfort and misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Chisato interrogated one of the witches in order to find out the whereabouts of the others. The witch revealed information about Neko, explaining that she had asked Kazumi for help so she could enroll in a school. The witch was willing to share this information because Chisato had promised her medication and an end to her suffering. At the same time, Kazumi and Neko were preparing to go to sleep. Kazumi curiously wondered what Ryota thought about Neko's appearance. Ryota felt confused about why Kazumi had decided to place her mattress next to Neko's. Kazumi explained that she could no longer stay at her previous place because laboratory personnel had started surveying the nearby dam, so she decided to live together with Kana and Neko instead. Ryota was surprised by how casually Kazumi made that decision. Kazumi pointed out that Ryota did not really have the right to refuse, since he still owed her for past assistance, and she planned to stay in the observatory room as a form of repayment. Neko did not fully understand what they were talking about. Ryota approached Kazumi and made a teasing remark that annoyed her, as she felt she had already been very open with him before. Frustrated, Kazumi reacted harshly, which left Ryota no choice but to back down. In the end, he allowed Kazumi to stay there until she could find a new place to live. Ryota felt uneasy about the possibility of outsiders frequently coming and going from the observatory. Kazumi told him not to worry and hinted that he would understand the situation better the next day, after which she quickly went to sleep. Later at home, Ryota examined an object that was said to be an alien baby. He believed that some form of data might be stored inside it. However, he was afraid to activate it because he worried that doing so might allow its location to be tracked. Ryota began to wonder whether the object was connected to the parasite inside Saori's body. He considered the possibility that the term fertilized alien egg was just an abstract label for something else entirely. For a long time, Ryota had gazed into the night sky searching for aliens, yet now he found something resembling an alien artifact right in front of him. He desperately wanted to turn it on, but knew he would have to do so in a distant city to stay safe. The next day at school, the teacher introduced a new transfer student, who turned out to be Kazumi. Many of the male students were excited by the arrival of the beautiful newcomer. Kazumi approached Ryota and mentioned that she planned to join the astronomy club. Meanwhile, Chisato was with his subordinates cleaning up the laboratory when Takachiho called him. Chisato immediately went to meet him. Takachiho asked whether Chisato understood how dangerous it was to let witches roam freely. Chisato explained that there had been 27 witches who escaped during a transfer. 8 had been recaptured, 5 bodies were found after they ran out of medication, and the rest were assumed to have met similar fates due to the lack of pills. Takachiho questioned why Chisato had failed to prevent the theft of the medication despite using an AA rank witch. Elsewhere, Ryota scolded Kazumi for acting recklessly by enrolling at his high school. Kazumi explained that she had falsified her records to show that she came from a national academy in Austria. She mentioned that she had German ancestry and could speak German fluently, and that the academic standards there were far higher than Japan's national exams. At that time, Takachiho reminded Chisato that he had responsibilities beyond dealing with witches and was not allowed to delay them. Chisato insisted that he had not neglected that work and had already begun preparing his next move. At the same moment, a girl knocked on the door of the observatory room. She turned out to be a witch sent by Chisato. The girl was also a transfer student and wanted to join the astronomy club. Her name was Kotori. Chisato had deliberately sent only one witch, fearing that sending more could increase the risk of rebellion, which would be extremely dangerous. Ryota asked Kotori to fill out the astronomy club registration form. Kotori was an AA+ rank witch, and Chisato believed that nothing would go wrong. Unexpectedly, after hearing Chisato's report, Takachiho chose to dismiss him from his position. Kotori, a new transfer student, wanted to join the astronomy club. She had already completed the club registration form and handed it to Ryota. Kotori then asked whether the people there were members of the astronomy club. Kazumi admitted that she was a member, even though she had technically joined just that day. Kotori greeted her politely, since she was a first-year high school student and wanted to show respect. Kazumi was surprised by Kotori's appearance and reacted with excessive curiosity, which made Kotori uncomfortable. Kotori quickly asked her to stop. Ryota found it strange that Kazumi often made comments about physical appearances, and he casually remarked that Kazumi should not compare herself to others. Kazumi became annoyed and reacted strongly, startling everyone in the room. Kotori then asked whether the girl lying on the floor was also a club member. Kana explained that she served as the club's mascot and oddly requested to be treated like an object rather than a person. After that, Neko introduced herself and greeted Kotori as well. Kotori asked Ryota about the activities of the astronomy club. Ryota explained that they usually observe stars through a telescope, and that the previous year he had gone up a mountain with upperclassmen to enjoy the night sky. Hearing this made Kotori very excited, and she expressed her desire to experience it herself. Ryota suggested holding a welcome event for the new member by doing a nighttime observation the next day. Kotori agreed immediately, but Kazumi and Kana were reluctant. Ryota insisted, explaining that participation was required if they wanted to remain in the club. Kana was surprised that Ryota spoke so firmly. Kazumi teased Ryota in a playful but inappropriate way, implying there were more entertaining things to do at night than stargazing. Ryota became flustered and confused by Kazumi's behavior. Suddenly, the desk and benches nearby were destroyed. Neko apologized, explaining that she had lost control of her magic. Kotori was shocked and asked what had just happened. Ryota brushed it off by saying it was caused by a sudden gust-like phenomenon and quickly changed the subject. He reminded everyone to wear warm clothes the next day because it would be very cold on the mountain. Kana suddenly asked where they were going, wondering why they were acting as if they lived there. Neko silently signaled her to stop talking. Kotori then excused herself, saying she had something to take care of. Kana asked Neko to take her to the restroom, and Neko carried her. Kotori kindly opened the door for them. Kazumi noticed that Ryota kept glancing at Kana and teased him again in an awkward manner. Ryota thought it must be difficult for Neko to handle everything on her own, but he knew it would not be appropriate for him to help with such matters. Kazumi continued teasing Ryota with suggestive remarks, which made him uncomfortable. Ryota wondered why Kazumi had been acting that way since the day before and commented that she did not need to force herself to talk like that. Kazumi was taken aback and felt embarrassed, wondering if being inexperienced was somehow a bad thing. Ryota reassured her that it was not bad at all and that she did not need to exaggerate her behavior. Kazumi explained that she was simply trying to do her best in her own way. Ryota wanted to ask Kazumi something, but she assumed he was about to comment on her appearance again. When Ryota made a careless guess, Kazumi became angry and tried to lash out. Ryota stopped her and reminded her of Kana's earlier words, that Neko would lose something precious if she used her magic too often. Ryota believed that what Neko was losing had to be her memories. Kazumi did not know the full details, but she believed that Neko might have lost memories she considered unimportant, or perhaps even memories she never wanted to lose. In reality, the experiments performed on Neko had been extensive. She had lost almost all memories from her childhood and could no longer remember what her parents looked like. The next night, Ryota and the others walked up the mountain together. The sky was incredibly beautiful. Ryota carried Kana on his back. Kana felt a little guilty, thinking she might be too heavy, but Ryota said he was already used to it, and joked that soon she might weigh no more than his school bag. Hearing that made Kana blush. Kazumi asked what Neko was looking at. Neko explained that she was observing the summer triangle, made up of Vega from the Lyra constellation, Deneb from Cygnus, and Altair from Aquila. She explained it in great detail, exactly the way Kuroniko used to when she was with Ryota. Neko herself was confused about why she knew all of this. Ryota began to suspect that Neko might truly be Kuroniko. After reaching the top, they set up the telescope. Kazumi complained about the cold, and Ryota wondered why she had worn such light clothing despite his warning. At that moment, Kotori looked at Saturn through the telescope. Ryota asked why she had decided to join the astronomy club. Kotori revealed that she wanted to see aliens. Ryota asked whether she truly believed in their existence. Kotori confidently stated that she did, and that she had seen them before. Ryota noticed a harness-like device on Kotori's back. At the same time, Kana had a sudden vision of the future. In that vision, Ryota would ask whether Kotori was also a witch, and afterward Kotori would cause serious harm to Neko. Alarmed, Kana called out to Ryota and asked him to come closer. Kana warned him that Kotori would endanger Neko, though she did not yet know how it would happen. Ryota immediately approached Kotori, while Neko and Kazumi moved closer to Kana. Neko asked what was going on. Kana explained that she had seen a vision in which Kotori would harm Neko. Kazumi was shocked and began to wonder whether Kotori might also have come from a laboratory. Ryota grew curious about the kind of magic Kotori used. When Kotori noticed Ryota staring at her, she asked what was wrong with him. Ryota immediately asked whether Kotori was a witch. Kotori was taken aback and questioned how Ryota could possibly know that. Ryota explained that there was a harness attached to the back of Kotori's neck. Kotori was confused about how Ryota knew about the harness and became worried that he might be targeted as well. Kazumi then admitted that she and the others were witches too. Kotori was surprised by the coincidence. The group wondered if Kotori was only pretending and asked her to show her magic. It turned out that Kotori's ability was teleportation. Shortly after that, Kotori disconnected. Ryota could not understand how that kind of magic could have been used to kill Neko, but Kazumi believed it was possible that Kotori was hiding a much stronger ability. Kotori pleaded for them to believe that she would never harm anyone. Neko approached them because she wanted to use the telescope. Seeing this, Ryota realized that Neko was more concerned about someone else getting hurt than about her own life. Ryota then invited everyone to continue with their observation, believing it was safe since Kotori had disconnected and could not use her magic for a while. Someone asked Kana whether Neko was the only one who had died in her vision. Kazumi still did not fully trust Kotori, but she was willing to try to let go of her suspicions. After Ryota finished setting up the telescope, he invited Neko to look at the moon. Neko was surprised because the moon looked so close and appeared upside down. Ryota explained that telescopes produce inverted images. Neko then excitedly told Kana about what she had seen. Ryota believed that Neko did understand how a telescope worked, but she may have simply forgotten. At first, Kana was not interested in looking at the night sky, but once she tried, she was genuinely amazed. Kazumi also became interested and took a turn looking through the telescope. Ryota felt that the activity had become a perfect way for everyone to relax. Kotori felt as if everything was a dream, never imagining that she could attend high school, join a club, and create memories like this. Kana saw another vision of the future but chose not to tell Neko about it. After the observation ended, they walked home together. Kana asked Ryota to slow down. She then asked which life mattered more to him, his own or Neko's. Ryota could not answer. All he wanted was to save Neko. Kana explained that her vision had changed. In the new vision, Kotori did not kill Neko but instead killed Ryota. Ryota was shocked by this revelation. Meanwhile, an AA+ ranked witch sent by Chisato entered the city. That same night, Kazumi's witch friend, Shino, was resting after losing her place to stay. Suddenly, a cat approached her and warned her of the danger that was coming. Shino immediately understood and escaped with the cat. Not long after, flames unleashed by the AA+ ranked witch engulfed the area where Shino had been resting. The next day, Ryota returned home from school earlier than usual and immediately asked Kana about her vision from the previous night. At first, Kana had seen Neko being killed near a large lake in the area, with Kotori standing beside her and smiling. Then the vision changed. At the same location, Neko was alive, but Ryota was the one who died. That event was likely to happen that very night. Ryota decided that they should avoid the lake. Unfortunately, Kana's vision did not change even after that decision. It seemed that there was some unavoidable reason forcing them to go there. Kana did not want Neko to know, because Neko would definitely try to find a way to save Ryota. Kana admitted that she did not care if Ryota died, and that the only thing that mattered to her was not losing Neko. Ryota understood. He thought that if Kana truly did not care about him, she would not have shared the vision at all. Ryota believed Kana told him so that he would find a way for both of them to survive. Kana mentioned that when Ryota died in the vision, Neko was bound to that area. Before long, Neko and the others arrived. Neko wondered why Ryota had not told her that he was leaving school early. Kazumi had intentionally brought Kotori with her so Ryota could question her. Ryota asked whether Kotori had escaped like the others. Kotori admitted that she had escaped together with Chie. Kazumi recognized Chie and knew that she used the same type of magic as her. Kazumi asked whether Chie was safe, but it turned out that Chie had just died. Kazumi accused Kotori of killing Chie to take her pills. Kotori was shocked by the accusation. Neko asked Kazumi not to accuse Kotori without clear proof. Kazumi admitted that she suspected Kotori because, in Kana's vision, Kotori would kill Neko. Kotori denied it, but Kazumi was unsettled by the strange expression on Kotori's face. Ryota then remembered Kana mentioning that Kotori had smiled after killing someone in her vision. Ryota thought that if Kotori truly intended to kill Neko and the other witches, there would have been no reason for her to go through the trouble of enrolling in high school and joining the astronomy club. Not long after that, Kazumi received a call from Shino. Shino was asking for help and desperately wanted Kazumi to save her from an AA+ rank witch who was chasing her. She explained that 2 of her friends had already lost their lives because of that witch. Shino begged Kazumi to help her as soon as possible. Neko immediately said that she would go to Shino's location. Shino mentioned that she was currently in a park near the lake. Kana quickly asked Ryota to stop Neko. Ryota immediately stepped in front of her and tried to block her from leaving. He mentioned that according to Kana's earlier vision, the location was near the edge of the lake. Even so, Neko refused to let anyone stop her from trying to save her friend. Ryota realized that Neko simply could not stand by and allow her friend to be killed. Neko threw a table toward Ryota and kept running while Kotori chased after her. Kazumi handed a radio to Ryota so she could guide him from a distance. Kana then stated that Kotori was the one who would end up killing Neko. At that moment, Kazumi prepared to use her magic to help both Ryota and Neko. Soon after, Neko and Ryota arrived at the lake. In the end, the 2 of them went there together, even though the situation was extremely dangerous because they wanted to save Shino. Not long after that, Kazumi informed them that Shino was on the north side of the park. Ryota was surprised that Kazumi could see her location. It turned out that Kazumi was using her magic to hack into the park's CCTV system. Ryota then asked Kazumi to locate Kotori as well, because based on Kana's vision, Kotori had to be somewhere nearby. Kazumi checked every angle of the CCTV cameras to search for Kotori. Suddenly, she told Ryota and Neko to hide near the stairs. Kazumi did not expect the lab to send an AA+ rank witch. She warned Ryota and Neko to stay hidden because the one chasing Shino was Kikako. Kikako kept getting closer, and at that point, Shino was truly terrified. The battery of her radio had run out, and she could only hope that someone would come to help her. Kazumi informed Ryota that Kikako used a cannon-type magic. Even though Kikako was an AA+ rank witch and only relied on a single spell, the power of that weapon was extremely overwhelming. Kikako then fired his magic and destroyed the structure in front of him. It was the first time Ryota had ever witnessed such an incredibly powerful spell. Neko refused to keep hiding because if they did not get closer, her magic would not be able to reach the enemy. Ryota did not expect Neko to confront Kikako directly. Neko believed that the witch who was trying to escape was only rank B and relatively weak, so they needed to protect each other. At the same time, Shino said goodbye to a cat that had been staying by her side and worrying her. When Kikako finally arrived, she tried to run away. Unfortunately, Kikako's magical explosion struck her, causing fatal injuries. Shino lost her life at the scene, and Neko was overwhelmed with grief as she witnessed her friend fall right in front of her eyes. Neko was deeply saddened because she had failed to save Shino. Everything had happened so fast that neither she nor Ryota had been able to do anything. Ryota explained that Neko was not actually Kikako's target, so in his opinion, there was no need for her to confront him. He also wondered how many operatives the lab people really had. Ryota and Neko were both shocked when they saw Kikako forcibly pulling the harness from Shino's body. Shino had become the 3rd victim. Neko was overwhelmed with anger and vowed that she would never forgive Kikako. She tried to approach him, even though Ryota attempted to stop her. Neko remained determined and refused to back down. Left with no other choice, Ryota pressed the hang-up button to cut the connection, preventing Neko from fighting Kikako, knowing that such a confrontation would only put her life in danger. He urged her not to seek revenge and instead use the opportunity to help the others. Not long after that, Kazumi reported that a group of people was heading toward Ryota's location. She told him to take Neko and leave immediately. News about the harness had already spread, so any girl around Neko's age was being checked around the neck area. Just as Ryota was about to leave, Kazumi unexpectedly stopped him after noticing Kotori nearby. At that moment, Kotori arrived while calling out for Shino. Neko asked Ryota to focus on saving Kotori, while she distracted Kikako. Kikako noticed Kotori's voice, and Neko stepped forward to draw his attention. Kotori was visibly frightened, and Ryota quickly came to her side and guided her into hiding. Neko demanded that Kikako turn back, while Ryota and Kotori observed from a distance. Kazumi could not understand what Ryota had said to Neko, believing that Kikako was not someone who could be reasoned with calmly. Hikako then mentioned the number 4, indicating a 4th victim. Kazumi grew frustrated and questioned why they did not simply escape, since Naoko had no real chance of defeating Kikako. Ryota believed otherwise. He explained that both he and Naoko thought it might be possible to get through everything without fighting. Kikako's attacks were not as terrifying as they first appeared, and his magic had a weakness. Naoko was able to avoid Kikako's attacks with relative ease. It became clear that Kikako's magic required a long recharge time, especially after stronger shots. That delay created an opening. If Ryota and Naoko could use that moment to get behind him, they would have a chance to press the button on his harness. Kana questioned whether Ryota was planning to risk his life. Ryota admitted that he would obviously avoid that, since he had no intention of dying. At that point, Kazumi temporarily blocked police radio communications and filed multiple emergency reports, effectively sealing off the park area. She urged Ryota to act quickly. However, Ryota suddenly lost sight of Kotori and began searching for her. He then found Kazumi tying herself to a pole. Kotori was startled when Ryota approached her. He asked why she had tied her own hands. Ryota recalled Kana's earlier vision that showed Naoko bound somewhere nearby. That realization made him understand that Kotori intended to switch places with Naoko to save her. Kotori no longer cared if Kikako would end her life, since she believed she would not survive much longer anyway, due to running out of pills. She did not want to extend her life by relying on medication or the sacrifice of others. What she truly wanted was to experience a normal school life. She had felt genuinely happy, even though she had only spent 2 days in the astronomy club. Because of that, she believed she would have no regrets if her life ended, as long as her magic could be useful. Ryota finally understood that Kotori was trying to replace Naoko. At that same moment, Kana's vision changed, and she became certain it was because Ryota had realized the truth. Meanwhile, Naoko was growing exhausted from continuously dodging Kikako's attacks. She wondered why Ryota was taking so long. Kikako had begun to read her movements, and it seemed that she would soon be unable to keep avoiding him. Naoko thought she might have to press the harness button herself. She searched for an opening, dodged another attack, and tried to move behind Kikako. Unfortunately, the moment she stepped forward, Kikako restrained her with a rope. He managed to immobilize her completely, leaving Naoko unable to move. Ryota and Kotori were shocked by what they saw. Kazumi could not understand what Ryota was truly planning at that point. Kikako began activating his explosive device. Kotori believed there was no other option except switching places with Naoko. Ryota insisted that there was another way, and that Kotori's magic was far stronger than she realized. After tightly securing Kotori's arms, Ryota asked her to teleport. Naoko braced herself, thinking the explosion was imminent, but she was stunned when she suddenly saw Kotori standing in front of her. Kikako had been switched to Naoko's position while still restrained. Ryota immediately pressed the button on Kikako's harness and covered his head to prevent further danger. It became clear that Kotori's magic was far more powerful than expected, especially when she swapped places with the attacking mage. Ryota never imagined that protecting a mage could be this complicated. He then attempted to question Kikako about his origins and the location of the lab. Naoko arrived and pointed out that Kikako likely did not know where the lab was either. Kazumi then warned them that another group was approaching and that the police would arrive soon. She told them to leave immediately. Naoko asked what they should do about Kikako. Ryota made it clear that he had no intention of befriending someone responsible for so many deaths, but that did not mean he would press the button to end Kikako's life. At that moment, they realized that Kotori was no longer with them. Ryota was certain that Kotori intended to face her fate alone somewhere. Without hesitation, Ryota and Naoko rushed off to find her. Not long after Korofuku's group arrived, Korofuku stated that even though Kikako had managed to obtain several harnesses, punishment was still waiting because Kikako had failed to properly complete the mission. That night, Ryota discovered Kotori inside a house, badly injured and covered in blood. He immediately contacted Naoko. Kotori was confused about how Ryota had managed to find her, but it turned out that Kazumi had obtained the address from the club registration form that Kotori herself had filled out. Realizing this, Kotori blamed herself for being careless. Not long after that, Naoko arrived at the scene. Ryota asked whether Kotori could still survive if they made her take a pill. Naoko explained that Kotori would be fine, as her injuries were not fatal. Hearing that, Ryota became convinced that Naoko must have endured many difficult experiences over a long period of time. Naoko then offered Kotori a pill, but Kotori refused because she did not want to take pills that belonged to someone else ever again. Kotori explained that the blood in her room belonged to Chie. That day was supposed to be Kotori's birthday, but with the pill she had, she believed she would not survive until then. Earlier, Chie had begged Kotori to stay alive and asked her to use Chie's pill instead. In their condition, neither of them would have made it to the birthday, so Chie insisted that Kotori should live for both of them. Kotori could not accept celebrating her birthday at the cost of Chie's life. Chie had intentionally not taken her own pill. Kotori was horrified when she found Chie lying motionless on the bed, covered in blood. Chie urged Kotori to take the pill, reminding her that Kotori was about to turn 16. Even though the pill would only allow her to survive for one more day, Chie had prepared a birthday gift by transferring Kotori into a high school. Chie knew how much Kotori wanted to attend school and had used her magic to manipulate official records to make it happen. As Kotori held Chie's hand, she felt Chie's grip loosen. Chie asked Kotori to promise that she would keep smiling, especially when she felt sad. Chie believed that crying during difficult times would only make the burden heavier. Overcome with emotion, Kotori broke down, while Chie wished her a happy birthday, knowing she would not have another chance to say it. Kotori had already promised to keep smiling even in sadness, but she felt overwhelming guilt for having survived at the cost of Chie's life. Ryota declared that he would not allow Kotori to die, pointing out that if a new member was lost, the astronomy club would be shut down the following year. He promised to find more pills before they ran out. Ryota gently persuaded Kotori to take the pill. Neko then asked whether Kotori truly did not care about Chie's birthday the following week. Touched by those words, Kotori finally took the pill while crying. Ryota then wished Kotori a happy birthday, which made her even more emotional. A week later, Kotori visited Chie's grave. She expressed her deep gratitude, knowing that thanks to Chie, she had been able to reach her 16th birthday. Kotori had kept her promise not to cry even when she felt sad, but standing in front of Chie's grave, she could no longer hold back her tears. On that day, Kotori quietly wished Chie a happy birthday as well. Meanwhile, Ryota had just gotten off a bus after grocery shopping, under the intense summer heat. When the explosion caused by Kikako had occurred earlier, the media reported it as a normal accident. Someone in power had covered up the truth. Kauna's inaccurate prediction made Ryota suspicious of Kotori. He realized that behind Kotori's constant smile was her promise to Chie to keep smiling even while feeling sad. When Ryota arrived at the observatory room, he found no one inside. He assumed that Neko and the others had stepped out because the room had no air conditioning. Shortly after, he heard loud voices from Neko and Kotori. It turned out that Kazumi had been playfully spraying them with water to cool them down. Both of them ended up completely soaked, and Kotori became extremely embarrassed by the situation. She explained that the heat had made things uncomfortable for everyone. Neko quickly went to dry off, while Kazumi teased Kotori, causing Kotori to react in embarrassment. Ryota arrived soon after, and Kazumi accused him of having bad timing. Ryota explained that he had only come to deliver groceries. They then prepared a meal together. After that incident, Kotori eventually agreed to stay at the observatory after Ryota persuaded her, knowing it would be emotionally difficult for her to continue living alone in her previous home after losing her friend. Ryota noticed that Kotori seemed happier living at the observatory. Kana commented that it felt like they were camping every day. Even so, Ryota remained worried, knowing that if the life-extending pills ran out, everyone would be in danger. Once the food was ready, they all ate together. Kazumi was the first to taste the meal and was surprised by how good Kotori's cooking was. Kotori had always enjoyed cooking, and she shyly reacted to the praise. Kana, on the other hand, felt disappointed seeing her own meal blended into a single mixture. After they finished eating, Ryota told him that he wanted to introduce someone who would help him obtain more pills. Kazumi asked whether that person could be trusted. Ryota explained that although the person was stubborn, they were not the type to betray others. Trusting Ryota's judgment, everyone agreed. Ryota then asked whether Neko's magic could work through glass. Neko explained that it could, as long as the glass was clear. Ryota then invited Neko to come with him. Upon arriving at a laboratory, Ryota met his friend Kogoro. Kogoro greeted Ryota warmly, noting that it had been a long time since they last saw each other, and he casually remarked that Ryota must be popular among other guys. During their conversation, Ryota mentioned that he had heard about Kogoro turning down an offer from a research organization based in the United States. Kogoro explained that his research activities did not require him to go very far, so if the organization truly needed his expertise, they could simply set up a lab nearby. If they did not need him that badly, then there was no reason for him to travel overseas. In short, Kogoro preferred to continue spending his time at his current university. The campus itself was not particularly famous, but Kogoro's name carried significant weight in his field. Kogoro then invited Ryota into his office and asked what Ryota was hoping to accomplish by coming there. Ryota began by explaining that learning the secret he was about to share could potentially put Kogoro's life in danger. Ryota said that a powerful organization might try to silence anyone involved, and he had already witnessed 2 people lose their lives right in front of him. He also admitted that he himself could be targeted at any time. Kogoro asked what benefit he would gain from taking such a serious risk, making it clear that money or personal ambition would not sway him. He also stated that he did not believe in supernatural phenomena that could not be scientifically proven. In response, Ryota said he would demonstrate magic as proof. He asked what object should be destroyed and explained that he had brought a magician with him to make the demonstration possible. Kogoro allowed Ryota to proceed and told him to destroy anything using this so-called magic. Ryota immediately gave instructions to Neko through his radio. Not long after that, the glass in the room shattered. However, Kogoro suspected that Ryota might have planted some kind of hidden device in the office. To convince him, Ryota asked Kogoro to choose an object to be destroyed. Kogoro selected the floor, believing it would be impossible to tamper with in advance. Shortly afterward, the floor itself was damaged. Still testing the limits, Kogoro took a pen out of his pocket, and the magic instantly crushed it. The pen had been a keepsake from his father. Kogoro laughed and admitted that the proof was convincing enough, even if it came at a high personal cost. In the end, he promised that he would follow Ryota's instructions from that point forward. Ryota asked Kogoro to duplicate the death delay pills. He explained that those pills were the reason the witches were still alive. Kogoro asked him to start from the beginning so he could understand the situation clearly. Ryota then explained that everything had started with the arrival of a new transfer student. He had nearly lost his life in a landslide, but the transfer student saved him using magical powers. That transfer student looked exactly like Kuroniko, Ryota's childhood friend who had died 10 years earlier in an accident caused by his own mistake. After hearing the full story, Kogoro understood the core of the problem. He explained that the witches Ryota described were more accurately classified as superhumans with modified bodies. Kogoro said that duplicating the pill would likely be very difficult, but not impossible. First, they would need to identify the active ingredient, analyze its molecular structure, and then find a way to synthesize it. If they were lucky, the process could take around 6 months, but if the molecular structure was especially complex, it could take several years. At that time, Ryota only had enough pills to last for 1 month. Initially, Kogoro suggested that Ryota should give up. However, he added that if the active ingredient turned out to be something simple, such as a crystal-like substance, determining its molecular structure would be much easier. If Kogoro mobilized all the research students at the facility, there was a chance they could synthesize it within 1 month. Hearing this, Ryota looked relieved, knowing there was still hope. Kogoro said he would contact Ryota as soon as they had any results. After that, Ryota showed Kogoro an object believed to be an alien egg. Ryota was not completely convinced about its origin, but he wanted Kogoro to investigate what was inside it. Kogoro agreed to examine it. That night, as Neko and the others were preparing to sleep, Kazumi asked about the status of their pills. Neko said that the pills were still being examined. Kotori commented that it would be amazing if Kogoro and the others managed to duplicate them. She thought that if the pills could be easily reproduced, many of their hopes might finally come true. Kana confidently assumed that Kazumi's hopes were probably related to personal desires, which she mentioned in a teasing but toned-down manner. Kana then said that they owed their lives to Ryota since he had given them hope for survival. Kazumi added that without Ryota, all of them would have died already. Kazumi wondered whether they should continue depending on Ryota. Kana replied that it was not a problem, especially since Ryota clearly cared about Neko. Neko's face immediately turned red. She denied it, saying that as far as she knew, Ryota still had feelings for his childhood friend, and she only happened to look like her. The next day at school, Kazumi suddenly tapped Ryota on the head to greet him. Ryota's classmates felt jealous because he was able to casually talk with Kazumi. It turned out that Kazumi never spoke to male students other than Ryota. Meanwhile, Risa and her friends invited Neko to go to karaoke, planning to meet at the station at 6 in the evening. On the way home, Neko asked Ryota what karaoke was. He explained that karaoke was an activity where people sang songs along with background music. Neko became anxious because she believed she could not sing at all. Ryota said that she could sing just fine, mentioning the time he had heard her humming while hanging laundry. He believed everyone would enjoy hearing her sing that song. Neko became annoyed and unconsciously used her magic. Ryota quickly apologized for upsetting her. Neko then asked Ryota to come with her, but he hesitated because he was not used to joining events without a direct invitation. Kana commented that Ryota seemed to have very few friends. Ryota denied that and explained that he could not go because he had to work. It turned out that Ryota worked as a private tutor. Neko then invited Kana to accompany her instead, but Kana could not join because she was unable to speak. Ryota gave Neko some money. He said that Neko had made a major decision by enrolling in school, so she deserved to enjoy herself like a normal high school student. Neko thanked him. When she took the wallet, their fingers briefly touched, causing Neko's face to turn red again. She wondered why she felt so nervous. At the karaoke place, Neko gathered with her friends. Risa asked her to choose a song, and Neko admitted that it was her first time at karaoke. One of the male students asked whether Neko and Ryota were dating and mentioned that he wanted to get to know her better. At the same time, Ryota rushed through his private tutoring session because he had an important matter to attend to that day. His student asked whether he was going on a date, but Ryota said the question was not important and told the student to review the assignment. Back at the karaoke room, the male student handed the microphone to Neko and encouraged her to sing. Neko held his hand and wondered why her heart did not race when she touched it. The boy was surprised and became embarrassed. Risa laughed and said that Neko had a great sense of humor. Neko then sang in front of everyone. Her friends were surprised that she chose the song Kuju no Tsuki. After she finished singing, everyone applauded. Neko quickly left the room to go to the restroom. In the hallway, she unexpectedly ran into Ryota. He admitted that he had come to karaoke intending to sing alone, but eventually confessed that he had been worried about her. Ryota asked whether she was having fun, and Neko nodded. Ryota then said goodbye and went home. After arriving at his house, Ryota felt as though his actions made him seem like a stalker. Not long after, his home phone rang. Kogoro informed him that the pill was not a crystalline compound, which meant it was impossible to duplicate it within 1 month. The next day, Ryota could not stop thinking about the pills. He refused to give up, because doing so would mean putting the lives of 4 girls at risk. There should have been pills stored at the laboratory where Neko and the others originally came from, if only he knew where that laboratory was located. When Ryota arrived at the observatory room, he was caught off guard by Kazumi's appearance. His face immediately turned red as he wondered why Kazumi was dressed so lightly. Kazumi explained that the room was extremely hot, and that she was wearing a swimsuit. She even casually pointed out that she was not wearing additional support, which only made Ryota more uncomfortable. He reacted awkwardly, and said that it did not affect him at all. Kazumi responded by kicking him and criticizing him for being insensitive to a woman's feelings. Ryota argued that she was just teasing him, and that a truly gentle woman would not behave that way. Unexpectedly, Kotori and Neko were also dressed in bikinis. Ryota's face grew even redder when he noticed Kotori, while Neko stared at him sharply after realizing that he had been looking at them for a while. Kazumi then mentioned that her computer was acting strange and asked if Ryota could fix it. Ryota explained that he planned to go to Akihabara the next day, and Kazumi immediately asked to come along. She was visibly excited, since she had always wanted to visit that place. Ryota suggested that they meet at the station at 9 in the morning. Kazumi happily looked forward to it, while Neko appeared slightly irritated. Ryota then asked Kotori whether she knew anything about the laboratory they came from. Kotori explained that low-ranking witches like herself were not allowed to know such information, but she had heard rumors about why the laboratory was built in the first place. According to those rumors, alien ruins had been discovered 100 years ago. Ryota suddenly remembered that both Kuroniko and Kotori had once claimed to have seen aliens. When he asked Kotori about it, she admitted that she had indeed seen one before. Meanwhile, Chisato was attending a meeting with the laboratory's top officials. He reported that he had recently secured 3 harnesses in Drazel, and that after interrogating Kikako, he had learned that subject number 1107 was still alive. The officials were shocked by this revelation, but their main priority remained the restoration of grain. After Chisato left the meeting, the officials discussed whether relying on him was the right choice. They ultimately agreed that Chisato was a brilliant researcher and an essential part of their plan. It had been a century since the ruins were discovered, and it seemed that the long-awaited moment was finally approaching. Later, Chisato informed Korofuku that they would proceed with restoring grain and that Nanami would be used in the process. Back at the observatory, Ryota asked what the alien looked like. Kotori described it as something resembling exposed flesh and muscle, like a lump of meat, and suggested that it was likely an experiment designed to observe their reactions. Kana also admitted that she had seen something similar before and only now realized that it must have been an alien. Ryota asked whether it was like an amoeba with many eyes, but Kotori clarified that it was not amoeba-like at all and looked more like raw flesh. She also mentioned a rumor about the laboratory possessing an extremely powerful witch, someone whose strength even surpassed Kikako's. According to the rumors, that witch had enough magical power to wipe out humanity multiple times. Kazumi wondered if Kotori was referring to a Valkyria. Kana revealed that she had heard of Valkyria as well, a witch ranked even higher than AAA, known as an S-rank witch. Kazumi believed that such a being would never bother chasing after them. Valkyria was said to be a goddess of death, responsible for guiding the souls of the dead to the afterlife. Neko commented that such a being could potentially bring about humanity's destruction. She then recalled Akane's words, which claimed that only Neko could save the world from ruin. Neko did not fully understand what Valkyria was, but she suspected that Akane might have meant that she would one day have to defeat such an existence. Kana then asked Ryota whether Kogoro could duplicate the life extension pills. With a heavy expression, Ryota explained that the pills could not be duplicated. While it was technically possible to make more, the process would take at least half a year. Kazumi and Kotori had already expected this answer. Ryota sincerely apologized, feeling responsible for taking away their remaining hope. Kana said that they had not expected much from the beginning. Neko added that she only hoped Kogoro and the others would continue developing the medicine, even if it was not for them, since it might help other witches who managed to escape. Ryota fell silent after hearing Neko's response. Kazumi left the room, saying she felt overwhelmed by the heat. As long as Ryota and the others did not know the location of the laboratory, the only thing they had left was a device that Neko had created some time ago. Meanwhile, Kazumi felt deeply saddened and broke down in tears after realizing that Kogoro truly could not make the pills for her. The next day, Ryota waited for Kazumi at the station, but she ended up arriving late. Kazumi apologized to him and explained that the reason a girl could be late for a meetup was because she got confused while choosing the right outfit, so Ryota should not blame her for it. Ryota responded by saying that what they were doing was not a date, and then they boarded the train heading to Akihabara. While on the train, Ryota kept reading his book, which made Kazumi wonder why he was ignoring her during what she believed to be their first date. Ryota once again stated that it was not a date, and that Kazumi was not his girlfriend. Kazumi then offered him some candy, but Ryota commented that it made her seem like an elderly woman from Osaka. When they arrived in Akihabara, Kazumi was extremely excited because it was her first time there. She mentioned that the area was filled with otaku culture. She spoke so loudly that people around them were startled when she asked Ryota an inappropriate and overly personal question about the visitors in the area. Ryota quickly asked her to lower her voice. Kazumi then teased Ryota by saying that he seemed like an inexperienced guy who acted as if he knew everything. At that moment, Kazumi really wanted to go to a maid cafe, but Ryota refused because their main purpose for coming to Akihabara was to buy supplies. Kazumi's expression immediately turned gloomy. They continued searching for the materials Kazumi needed, and it turned out that the items she wanted were very expensive. Even so, Ryota decided to buy them for her, since Kazumi's magic had helped him many times before. Kazumi thanked Ryota for buying the items. Unexpectedly after that, Ryota invited her to go to a maid cafe after all, which instantly made Kazumi overjoyed. When they arrived at the cafe, the maids warmly welcomed them. Kazumi could hardly believe that she had finally made it to a maid cafe, just as she had hoped. She was especially eager to try omuris. Not long after, a maid brought their order of omuris, decorated with a cute character design. Kazumi absolutely loved the food and happily encouraged Ryota to try it as well. Ryota asked her not to do that because it felt embarrassing. Kazumi then admitted that she was truly enjoying the day and felt that it might be the happiest day of her life so far. After hearing that, Ryota accepted the bite she offered. After leaving the maid cafe, Kazumi asked what Ryota was actually looking for in Akihabara. Ryota then showed her a device and explained that Neko had given it to him. Neko had obtained the device from someone who had escaped together with her. Kazumi became curious about who that person really was. Ryota suspected that the device might be used to transmit locations, but since there were many people in Akihabara carrying similar gadgets, it would be difficult to identify the right person if that were the case. Ryota activated the device, and unfamiliar foreign text suddenly appeared, which he could not understand. After that, a map was displayed, and Ryota wondered whether they should go to that location. Kazumi advised against it and explained that the earlier text was written in German, carrying a dangerous message about eliminating witches in order to reveal the truth. Hearing this explanation left Ryota deeply shocked. Ryota obtained a map from the object that Neko had given him, and Kazumi asked where the location shown on the map might be. Ryota admitted that he did not know, since the map could not be zoomed in or out. There was a space for entering a password, but all they could do was estimate the location based on the topography. Kazumi believed that whoever was waiting there was definitely not an ally, yet Ryota still intended to go because they had no other leads. When Ryota and Kazumi returned home, Kotori asked whether they had found the device they were looking for. Kazumi replied that they had obtained it. Ryota then explained about the map that appeared on the object Naoko had given him, believing it was their only clue about the pills. He wanted to identify the location and head there as soon as possible. Naoko wanted to come along, but Ryota stopped her because there was a message stating that if they wanted to learn the truth, they would have to eliminate the witches. Ryota suspected that the place shown on the map could be an enemy base. Even so, Naoko could not bring herself to let Ryota go alone. Ryota insisted that he would not be killed and believed that, at the very least, someone there wanted to convey something important. Kana asked whether it might be a trap, but Ryota still felt it was the only clue they had to survive. Ryota headed home, and Naoko followed him because she wanted to see the trap again. Ryota asked whether Naoko planned to destroy it, but he had already memorized the map completely. Naoko admitted that she would be deeply saddened if Ryota were gone, and that she would rather see him stay alive than be the one who survived herself. She asked him not to do anything reckless or impossible. Not long after, a bus arrived and Ryota boarded it. He told Naoko not to worry about him. Unbeknownst to them, Kazumi was watching from above. After returning home, Ryota tried to analyze the map further. There was a word that looked like Naka, possibly referring to a place name such as Nakane or Nakameguro. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and he wondered who could be visiting so late at night. It turned out to be Kazumi, who had come to help with the map. She had improved her interface and offered her assistance. Ryota admitted that he had been struggling, but noted that he was the only one at home at the time. Kazumi considered that convenient and entered the house without hesitation. Ryota was surprised that she knew his address, but Kazumi explained that she was an exceptionally skilled witch in information technology. As long as the data existed in Japan, she could uncover it. She even teased him about his online habits, which made Ryota visibly embarrassed. Ryota showed her the topographic details he had memorized from the map, and Kazumi was impressed that he could recall it with such precision. Ryota explained that he could remember anything after seeing it once, almost like a scanner. He believed that Naka was the key clue and likely referred to a place name starting with those letters. Soon after, Kazumi identified the location on the map as Nakaruzawa. From satellite imagery, the area appeared to resemble an entertainment complex. Ryota asked Kazumi not to dig any deeper, worrying that other witches with similar abilities might notice someone investigating the area. He planned to research it further at the library the next day instead. Out of nowhere, Kazumi asked whether Ryota had feelings for Naoko. Ryota was confused by the sudden question and did not admit to having romantic feelings for her. The conversation then took an awkward turn, with Kazumi behaving impulsively and making Ryota increasingly uncomfortable. Her actions and words were driven by emotional confusion rather than logic, and the situation quickly became tense. Ryota tried to avoid escalating things and made it clear that he did not want to cross any boundaries. Kazumi became frustrated and acted out physically in a way that reflected her unstable emotions rather than genuine intent to harm. Ryota managed to separate himself from her, and the two ended up in an extremely awkward position that only heightened the tension. Kazumi soon realized that things had gone too far and abruptly asked to stop. She appeared confused by her own behavior and admitted that everything had happened too suddenly for her. Ryota remained silent, unsure how to respond. Kazumi then questioned whether Ryota felt unsatisfied, but he denied it, insisting that he was not thinking about things in that way. In the end, Kazumi calmed down and stayed close to Ryota, expressing that she understood him better than she initially thought. The moment ended with lingering discomfort and unresolved emotions, highlighting the complexity of their relationship rather than any clear resolution. Ryota reminded Kazumi that the last bus would arrive soon, but Kazumi instead asked to stay the night because she wanted to be close to him. Ryota decided to go to sleep right away since he had to wake up early the next morning. However, he found it impossible to fall asleep with a girl lying beside him. Kazumi wrapped her arms around him and reminded him not to do anything reckless the next day. The following morning, Ryota set out on a journey toward the location marked on the map. He eventually arrived at a ruined church, and the damage appeared to be relatively recent. Ryota suspected that the people who were trying to uncover the truth might have already been attacked. He decided to leave the area and soon encountered an elderly woman who owned a nearby shop. Ryota asked her about the destruction behind the building. The woman explained that about 3 months earlier, a very loud explosion had been heard in the middle of the night. Ryota asked whether anyone had gone near that area afterward, and the woman said that no one had approached the site at all. Ryota apologized for asking so many questions and prepared to leave. The woman quietly murmured that she should have been the one apologizing to him. Ryota returned to the church ruins to search for clues. On the damaged wall, he noticed writing and several dark stains that suggested something serious had happened there. Suddenly, a group of police officers stopped him and ordered him to leave the area. Ryota suspected that the elderly woman had reported him, and he realized his own carelessness. He apologized and explained that he was only curious, but the officers immediately restrained him. The police chief instructed his subordinates to report the situation to the community unit. Ryota was forcibly taken toward a police car, and he thought that if he was arrested, everything would end right there. Unexpectedly, the police car suddenly exploded, shocking everyone at the scene. It turned out that Naoko was responsible for the explosion. She caused several more explosions nearby and also destroyed Ryota's restraints. Naoko signaled for Ryota to run toward her. Ryota immediately started running, but the police chief fired a warning shot. The chief was convinced that Naoko had a device attached to the back of her neck, and the officers identified her as the terrorist they had been searching for. Naoko calmly stated that the police weapons were too weak to defeat her. Ryota was confused about why Naoko seemed to provoke the police, and she told him to stay back. The police chief then fired directly at Naoko, but the bullet shattered instantly before reaching her. The chief ordered all officers to fire at once, yet every bullet broke apart in midair before making contact. Ryota realized that instead of destroying the bullets, Naoko could simply disable the weapons themselves. In an instant, all of the guns were rendered useless. The police chief ordered his team to call for backup, but their radios and phones no longer worked. Ryota was certain that this was Kazumi's doing, and it became clear that Kazumi had not allowed Naoko to act alone. Naoko caused another explosion near the officers, leaving them disoriented. She urged Ryota to leave immediately, but the police chief suddenly rushed forward and knocked Ryota to the ground. The chief claimed that he had clearly seen the device on Naoko's neck. Naoko tried to pull the police chief away from Ryota, but she was pushed aside. The chief restrained Ryota and warned him not to underestimate the police. At that moment, Kotori suddenly took the police chief's place. She had anticipated this outcome, tied herself to a tree beforehand, and waited for the right moment. Meanwhile, the police chief was left stunned by what had happened and wondered whether the earlier events had even been real. Ryota questioned why Naoko and Kotori had come with him, even though he had told them not to follow. It was revealed that Kana had received a vision showing that Ryota would be killed, predicting that he would be shot while escaping from the police. Naoko explained that she and the others did not want Ryota to push himself alone. They could not stay behind while he walked into danger for their sake. Naoko believed that if they combined their abilities, they would become incredibly strong together. Ryota had been worried about their safety, but he realized that he had no choice but to trust them. Without their intervention, he would not have survived that day. Kotori asked what they should do next since they had run out of leads. Ryota told her not to worry because there was still one final clue left. Meanwhile, Kogoro was in his office. As one of Ryota's relatives, he hoped he could help ease Ryota's burden in some way. Before long, he received a phone call that provided extremely important information. Kogoro became excited, driven by his strong curiosity. He became convinced that the cell in question might actually be a fertilized alien egg. At the same time, Korofuku met with Chisato in his office. He informed him about reports received from the prefectural police. Based on the situation, the cases appeared to be numbered 1107 and 7620. Chisato asked how many people had witnessed the witch. Korofuku explained that 6 people from the local jurisdiction staff had seen her. He then asked whether they should assign Nanami to handle the situation. Chisato gave his approval and also instructed that, after dealing with that matter, Nanami must locate number 1107. Meanwhile, Kazumi was inside the observation room with Kana. Kana wanted to bring something up with Kazumi. Earlier, Kana had felt extremely uncomfortable because Kazumi tended to be overly talkative and inappropriate, especially when discussing topics related to Valkyries. Kazumi believed that their conversation might attract attention from others. Kana stated that Kazumi's behavior had been bothering her. Kazumi responded by saying that Kana had been acting unusually bold lately, making an insensitive remark about changes in her appearance. Kazumi's actions crossed personal boundaries, causing Kana to feel embarrassed and distressed, and she asked him to stop and respect her space. At that moment, Ryota, Naoko, and Kotori entered the room and were shocked by what they saw. Kana immediately sought help from Naoko, explaining that Kazumi had acted in a way that made her feel unsafe. Kazumi quickly corrected his behavior and helped Kana fix her clothing properly. Naoko was deeply surprised that Kazumi would behave so carelessly toward Kana. Kazumi insisted that Kana was an important friend to him. In an attempt to lighten the mood, he rushed to the refrigerator, grabbed a pudding, and gave it to Kana. Kotori protested because the pudding belonged to her, but Kazumi dismissed her complaint and made an unnecessary comment about avoiding too many sweets. Kazumi then asked Ryota whether he had found any clues. Ryota wondered if it was possible to enter a password into the device. He admitted that he had not found the password yet, but he had noticed writing on a church wall along with bloodstains. Ryota was convinced that someone had been trying to leave a message. He believed they needed to try again in a safer location. If that attempt failed, they would completely lose their only lead. The next day, Korofuku met with the police officers. He wanted to hear a detailed explanation of the previous day's incident. The police chief found it odd that Korofuku was wearing dark sunglasses. Korofuku explained that he wore them as a form of personal protection. The police chief said there was nothing more to ask, since all reports had already been written. He firmly believed that the figure they had seen was a superhuman and asked Korofuku to clarify the situation. Korofuku then introduced them to a superhuman individual. He explained that this person possessed tremendous strength and had a very distinctive appearance. The officers were immediately stunned upon seeing the superhuman's face. The police chief added that they had tried to capture a young intruder who had entered the church, but the person managed to escape. He believed it was not a serious issue and did not require further investigation. Korofuku later took the superhuman to another location and explained that the mission was to find the whereabouts of number 1107. He brought her to a crowded area and reminded her that the harness she was wearing contained a signal device, so she needed to stay alert in order to survive. The superhuman quickly drew attention from the surrounding crowd due to her unusual presence. Her name was Nanami. Korofuku took Nanami to a crowded public area and began scanning the memories of the people around them simply by looking at them. Nanami noted that most of the people there were tourists. Korofuku planned to take her to the place where hashtag 1107 had last been seen, but Nanami instead asked him to buy her some ice cream. She explained that her magic required a lot of sugar to function properly. After finishing her ice cream, Nanami commented that the outside world really was as beautiful as she had imagined. While they were in the car, she sketched the image of a high school boy remembered by the police. Korofuku felt that her drawing was not very good. Although he wanted to eliminate that student, his main goal was still to find hashtag 1107 first. As they prepared to leave, Nanami suddenly asked whether Korofuku would forget her. He was confused by the question. He admitted that he would not be able to do his job properly if he forgot her. After that, they visited several locations to scan people's memories, but they still found no useful clues. Korofuku did not expect it to be this difficult to track down hashtag 1107. At the same time, he was surprised to see Nanami constantly snacking. She explained that the food was necessary to maintain her magical ability. Korofuku asked whether Nanami really needed to lift her skirt each time they visited a place. Nanami had to make eye contact with the people whose memories she wanted to scan, and she said that this method was the most effective way to draw attention. Later, they went to a large shopping center in the city. Korofuku warned her that doing that there could get her into trouble with the police. Nanami asked what she should do instead. Since Nanami had a naturally sweet and eye-catching appearance, Korofuku believed people would look at her as they passed by. Nanami fell silent and her face flushed. Unexpectedly, she removed her outer layer of clothing, which immediately drew attention from people nearby. A few individuals approached her inappropriately, but she calmly asked them not to disturb her. When Nanami looked directly at one of them, the person suddenly became frightened and ran away in confusion. Korofuku approached her and asked what she had done. Nanami explained that she had erased that person's memories from the present day back to when he was 5 years old. At that moment, Korofuku realized how much his sunglasses had been protecting him. He told Nanami to take a break, but she suddenly succeeded in scanning the memories of someone who knew Ryota. She had scanned a high school student named Kitsuka. Nanami then asked for 1 full day to walk around freely, promising that she would continue her task afterward. Korofuku was puzzled by this request. Nanami explained that her ability was not limited to scanning and erasing memories. When she erased someone's memories, she could also replace them with new ones. She asked whether that made Korofuku uneasy. He admitted that he felt safe as long as he wore his sunglasses. Not long after, an unknown man suddenly attacked Korofuku, mistaking him for someone else who had caused trouble for his younger sister. Korofuku fought back. Nanami commented that Korofuku had already put himself at a disadvantage by bringing her into such a crowded place. In the chaos, several people surrounded Korofuku. A strike knocked off his sunglasses, allowing Nanami to scan his memories and restore them to their original state before he could forget her. Nanami quickly took the gun from him. Korofuku appeared as if nothing had happened. From the memories she had just seen, Nanami grew curious about what the researchers had been doing to him. She had already suspected that Korofuku would soon forget her again. Later that afternoon, Hitsuka told Ryota that a friend wanted to meet him. Hitsuka brought Ryota to see Nanami. Afterward, Nanami asked Hitsuka to leave immediately. On the way back, Hitsuka felt confused about why she had introduced Ryota to a girl she did not even remember meeting before. Meanwhile, Nanami scanned Ryota's memories and discovered information about #1107. She also learned that Kodori, Kazumi, Neko, and Kana were in the observatory room. Ryota noticed the harness around Nanami's neck and recognized her as a witch. Nanami raised her gun, explaining that her magic worked instantly. Ryota immediately looked away and stated that he understood her power allowed her to read and alter memories. Nanami wondered how Ryota knew this. Ryota reasoned that Hitsuka could not possibly have a witch as a friend, since Hitsuka had treated Nanami as someone she already knew. Nanami's ability clearly involved not only reading minds but also altering them. Nanami questioned who Ryota really was. Ryota concluded that her reaction meant her power only worked when she made eye contact with someone. Nanami was shocked by how perceptive Ryota was. At first, she had intended to erase his memory. Ryota believed that, unlike the other witches who had chased him with the intent to harm him, Nanami seemed different and capable of becoming his ally. Hearing this left Nanami visibly surprised. At the same time, Korofuku contacted the laboratory and requested an extension for Nanami's lifespan. He had not expected to be assigned to monitor the facility and report on its condition at any moment. Nanami told Ryota that she wanted to enjoy her freedom for the day before returning to the lab to report back. If she did everything correctly, she would receive a reward. Ryota did not know what kind of reward she was promised, but he asked whether a single day of freedom was really enough for her. He explained that he and the others had already found clues that might help her obtain more pills. If they could do something about the saucer, Nanami might be able to live freely. Ryota asked her to trust him, yet Nanami said it was hard to believe him when he kept avoiding her gaze. Nanami then asked to see Ryota's memories again. She said that if he was truly being honest, she would believe him. Ryota asked whether she planned to erase or alter anything. Nanami found it strange that Ryota asked for her trust while he himself seemed unable to trust her. Ryota admitted that he did trust her and looked directly at her. Nanami used her magic, causing Ryota to collapse. She erased his memories all the way back to his birth, leaving him crying like a baby. After throwing away his gun, Nanami quickly left the area. However, Ryota had only pretended to cry to deceive her, and his memories remained intact. He immediately rushed to the observatory room. At the same time, Kazumi and the others were relaxing together in a hot bath. They were chatting and joking around when Ryota suddenly burst in and warned them that they were all in danger. Everyone screamed in surprise and quickly covered themselves, confused about why he had entered so suddenly. Ryota explained that another witch was watching them and had already discovered their location. He showed them a sketch of Nanami that he had drawn from memory. Kazumi was impressed by how detailed Ryota's memory was. Ryota suspected that Nanami might have failed to erase his memories because of how strong his recall was. In an instant, Kazumi pulled up a photo from a park camera taken the night before, showing Nanami. However, she could not determine Nanami's exact location at that moment. If they did not leave before morning, they might run out of time. Ryota suggested that they all decide together that night whether they would confront Nanami or escape from the observatory and move somewhere else. The next day, Nanami went to the hotel reception desk to check out. She used her magic to make the receptionist remember that she had already paid for her room. Nanami then made up her mind not to use her magic for the rest of the day because she wanted to experience life as an ordinary girl. Feeling extremely hungry, Nanami approached Korofuku to borrow some money so she could buy snacks. Korofuku doubted that she would ever be able to repay him and made an inappropriate suggestion. Nanami only needed 50 yen to buy candy, but Korofuku remarked that the amount was too small and made a crude offer instead. Nanami remembered that Korofuku had once seen her entire body in the experiment room, and she realized she had erased that memory from him. Embarrassed and uncomfortable, Nanami complied in a way that made her face turn red, and she quickly left after receiving 1,000 yen. Korofuku could not fully understand who Nanami really was. Nanami stared at the money in her hand, amazed at how much it was. With that amount, she could buy a large number of candies. Suddenly, she noticed a boy being scolded by his friend for accidentally dropping a trading card. Nanami asked about the price of the card and learned that it cost 1,000 yen. Without hesitation, she handed over all the money she had just received to replace it. She gently asked the boys to stay friends and stop arguing. Both boys thanked her sincerely. Nanami realized that she had helped prepare their friendship in an unexpected way. She returned to Korofuku again to ask for more money. Meanwhile, Ryota, Neko, and Kotori were in the city center. Kazumi informed them that Nanami was still near the fortress area, and Ryota asked Kazumi to keep tracking her movements. Kotori worried that she might accidentally make eye contact with Nanami and suggested wearing sunglasses as a precaution. At that moment, Nanami was walking down the street. She had just received another 1,000 yen from Korofuku after an uncomfortable exchange. Feeling very hungry, she searched for a shop that sold the cheesecake she had been craving. She then saw a group of high school girls chatting excitedly about the crepes they were about to buy. Nanami wished she could talk and laugh with friends like them. She felt a deep sense of envy toward people who had companions to share moments with. Kazumi then informed Ryota that Nanami was on Nakamachi Street. Ryota and the others immediately hurried toward that location. At that moment, Nanami was sitting in a cafe, surprised by how expensive the food was. She ordered a single slice of cake without a drink. When the cake was placed in front of her, she could hardly believe that the day had finally come when she could taste cheesecake. As she took a bite, she quietly admitted that she had struggled through life just to be able to enjoy something as simple as this. Her words deeply moved the cafe staff who overheard her. After leaving the cafe, Nanami found herself thinking that she did not want to return to the lab. She looked around at the people passing by, each of them living their own ordinary lives. Under the lab's orders, she had erased the memories of many people, and now only a few lab members even remembered who she was. No one else recognized her. The loneliness weighed heavily on her. Before long, Ryota, Neko, and Kotori approached her. Nanami was puzzled about why Ryota's memories had not disappeared. Ryota explained that he had remembered Nanami ever since they first met, and it seemed that her ability simply did not work on him. Nanami then asked whether Ryota and the others were prepared to fight her. Ryota denied it. Instead, he explained that he and his friends wanted to save her. Nanami told him not to act foolishly, reminding him that she had once tried to erase his memories, so there was no reason for them to try to save her. Ryota gently asked Nanami to trust him, assuring her that he and the others were serious. Neko stepped closer and said that they did not need a reason to help someone who was suffering. Nanami was touched and wondered how Neko could tell that she had been alone for so long. Unexpectedly, Neko removed her sunglasses, shocking everyone around her. Neko invited Nanami to work together, explaining that there was no place in this world for witches. She believed they could become close if Nanami chose to trust her. Nanami paused to think, but she still could not bring herself to believe what sounded like a reckless idea. Suddenly, she altered Neko's memories. Neko turned toward Nanami and declared that she would protect her. She began causing destruction around them in an attempt to shield Nanami from any perceived threat. Ryota called out to Neko, asking her to calm down. However, Neko continued releasing explosive bursts toward Ryota and Kotori, warning them not to interfere with her friend. Nanami was confused because she had not given Neko any memories about friendship, yet Neko still saw her as one. When Ryota fell, Neko managed to glimpse into his memories. There she saw his sincere wish to save Nanami and his hope of becoming her friend. Neko prepared to attack Ryota, but Nanami stopped her and restored her original memories. Neko was startled and asked what had just happened. Ryota explained that Nanami had briefly manipulated Neko's memories and then returned them. He asked Nanami why she had chosen to restore Neko's memories. Nanami admitted that she had not expected to find herself present in both Ryota's and Neko's memories. Meanwhile, Korofuku returned to his car after growing bored of watching over the fortress. Nanami confessed to Ryota that she did not want to go back to the lab and did not want to erase her existence from their memories. She felt lost and did not know what she should do next. At that same time, Korofuku discovered a book inside his car. Nearby, Neko gently hugged Nanami and reassured her that no one wanted to return to the lab, which was why she wanted to help her. Neko expressed confidence that they could work together. Nanami was deeply moved by her words. Korofuku, however, was shocked by what he found inside the book. Nanami felt deeply moved when Neko hugged her. Not long after that, Ryota received a call from Kazumi, who informed him that Kogoro had come to the observatory room to meet them. Ryota said the timing was perfect, because there was a chance Kogoro might be able to remove Nanami's harness. He asked Kazumi to let Kogoro know that he would be arriving with Nanami. When they reached the observatory, Nanami looked around the room. Ryota explained that once the harness was removed, she would be able to stay there with them. He then asked Kogoro to take off the device. However, Kogoro admitted that he had actually come because he wanted to witness their magic. Ryota promised that he would show it to him later, and Kogoro agreed. Ryota went on to explain that the harness allowed the lab to press an eject button remotely. If that button was activated, the witch's body would dissolve and she would die. Kogoro found it difficult to believe, but he agreed to proceed based on Ryota's explanation. He noticed that the harness was secured by claw-like clamps attached to a ring, and that removing it by force would trigger a sensor alarm. Kogoro said he needed to examine the internal structure of the harness using X-ray equipment and asked how much time they had left. Nanami explained that the lab staff could activate the eject function at any moment if they realized she had escaped. Ryota asked Kana whether she had seen any visions. Kana admitted that she had not, and that she could not see every possible death. Since time was limited, Kogoro suggested using liquid nitrogen to disable the sensor and then attempting every possible method to dismantle the device. Ryota pointed out how risky that plan was. Surprisingly, Nanami said she did not mind whether the attempt succeeded or failed. She believed that people did not truly disappear from the world when they died. According to her, true death happened only when someone was forgotten. Because she had the ability to erase the memories of other witches, she had never been allowed to meet any of them. As a result, she had never had a single friend. She said that if Ryota and the others would not forget her, she would be ready to accept death there. If that happened, she would still feel happy. Naoko immediately told Nanami not to say such things. She said she would be heartbroken if Nanami died. Naoko believed that none of them would forget her, but remembering her after her death would be too painful, and she did not want that to happen. Kazumi added that calling someone a friend simply because they remembered you was not enough. True friendship happened when two people understood each other. She felt sorry to hear that Nanami had always wanted friends. Kazumi took off her sunglasses and said she was willing to be Nanami's friend. Kotori also agreed and said she would be honored if Nanami considered her a friend. Kazumi lightly teased Kotori for rarely having many friends. Kana said she would also be Nanami's friend as long as Nanami did not read or alter their memories. From the very beginning, Ryota had felt that they could all become friends with Nanami. Nanami was overwhelmed with emotion. She had once thought that if she could have friends, she would not mind dying, but now she realized that was not true. She did not want to die at all. Just as Kogoro was about to call his university to prepare the X-ray equipment, Kana suddenly screamed. Nanami's harness detached from her body on its own. Korofuku had ordered the eject function to be activated, confused by Nanami's decision to run away. In an instant, Nanami's body dissolved before everyone's eyes, and they were powerless to stop it. Earlier, Korofuku had asked Nanami to locate subject #1107 and promised her a reward. The reward Nanami wanted was simple. She wished to have friends who would not forget her. Friends whose memories she would not need to alter, and friends who would continue to remember her even after she was gone. At that moment, Nanami felt that she had already received her reward. She felt grateful to Ryota and the others for accepting her as a friend. That day became the happiest day of her life. Ryota covered what remained with his clothes. He felt an overwhelming sense of guilt for failing to save her. He believed he had brought Nanami to her death, and thought he should have told her to return to the lab instead. Suddenly, Kazumi showed a look of discomfort and asked Kotori to clean it up. Kotori refused, saying she also felt uneasy about it. They spoke as if what was left should simply be thrown away. Ryota was shocked by what he heard. They spoke as though it were nothing more than trash. They did not even seem to recognize Nanami's name. Ryota realized that Nanami had erased their memories. He could not understand why she would do that when she had said she did not want to be forgotten. Then he understood. Nanami had chosen to protect her friends from the pain of watching her die. Even though she had longed for friends who would remember her after her death, she set aside her own wishes so that Naoko and the others would not suffer. Ryota broke down in tears and cried out uncontrollably. Kotori could not understand what was happening to him. Then, an image of Nanami appeared before Ryota. She asked him not to be sad. Nanami explained that she had stored her memories inside Ryota, which had taken up a large portion of his memory capacity. She said that the secrets she knew about the lab were limited, but she hoped they would still be useful within his memories. Nanami also said how happy she had been when Ryota invited her to be his friend. The image of Nanami slowly faded away. Ryota felt relieved, believing that Nanami still lived on in his heart. Naoko did not understand what had happened, but she felt as if she had forgotten something very important again. Tears kept flowing down her face, even though she did not know why. The next morning, Ryota woke up feeling as if everything that had happened with Nanami had only been a dream. At school, Kazumi invited Naoko to go shopping with her after classes, and they planned to bring Kotori along as well. Ryota realized that what Nanami had truly wanted was for her friends to forget about her so they would not feel sad. Not long after, Risa announced that exams would be held the following week. After school, Ryota and the others studied together. Kazumi eventually gave up, saying there was no reason to prepare for exams since their pills would run out in 3 weeks, and they would die anyway. Ryota refused to accept that outcome. He insisted that what they needed to do was obtain as many pills as possible. He encouraged them and asked whether they still wanted to experience high school life. He said that going to school and wearing uniforms might feel like cosplay, but studying was what truly defined the life of a high school student. Kazumi said they needed motivation to study. Kotori suggested that anyone who worked hard on the exams would be rewarded with a trip to the beach. That idea immediately caught Kazumi's attention. Kotori believed that anyone would feel motivated by a reward, especially since it was summer, and going to the beach would be perfect for them. Ryota agreed and promised to take them to the beach if they scored above average. Kazumi and Kotori were thrilled to hear this. Ryota told Kana not to worry about it since she did not attend school. Kana said she did not mind missing the beach trip, but Ryota promised he would rent a wheelchair for her when they went. Kazumi then started talking excitedly about youthful energy and asked Ryota to help her calm down. Ryota told Kazumi to take a cold shower. Kotori reminded Kazumi not to keep bringing up overly personal topics. Kazumi replied that she considered herself more mature than the others and asked if anyone among them had ever kissed someone. Neko and Kotori were startled by the question, while Kana did not even understand what Kazumi meant. Kazumi claimed that she had once kissed someone, and that person was Ryota. Ryota was shocked, and without realizing it, Neko accidentally caused a tree in front of her to explode. Ryota did not understand why Neko reacted that way. He insisted that he had never kissed anyone. Kazumi wondered if Ryota had simply forgotten what happened in Akihabara. Hearing this, Neko accidentally caused another tree to burst apart. Ryota accused Kazumi of lying, but Kazumi insisted she was telling the truth, and said that the moment happened at a maid cafe. Ryota finally realized that Kazumi was referring to an indirect kiss when he had tasted her omuris. Neko became upset and chose to walk away. Ryota could not understand why Kazumi had brought that up. Kazumi maintained that she had not been lying and admitted she had been very happy at the time, though it seemed Ryota had not felt the same way. That afternoon, Ryota walked home, wondering where Neko had gone and why she had been so upset. Suddenly, he heard Neko singing to herself, saying that she was not sad at all and did not care about the indirect kiss. Ryota watched her quietly, confused about why it mattered so much to her, but he decided to head home before she noticed him. Unfortunately, he accidentally kicked a can, startling her. Ryota apologized and said he had not meant to spy on her, claiming he had not heard anything. He even spoke in the same rhythm as her singing, which made Neko shout in embarrassment. Ryota explained that what Kazumi had called an indirect kiss was simply when he tasted Kazumi's omuris. Neko asked him not to talk about it anymore because she said she did not care. Neko's throat had grown dry from singing for so long, so Ryota handed her his bottle of water. She drank from it without thinking, then suddenly realized she had just shared an indirect kiss with him. Her face turned red, and she began singing again, insisting that it had nothing to do with anything. Ryota suggested that since she liked singing, she should try going to karaoke. Neko did not know what karaoke was. Ryota was surprised because she had once gone to karaoke with her classmates. He realized that Neko's memory of that time must have disappeared. Ryota remembered what Kazumi had once said, that if Neko was unlucky, she might forget things she did not want to forget. He felt a wave of sadness and fear that one day Neko might forget him too. Without thinking, Ryota hugged Neko. Her face turned red, and she did not understand why he suddenly did that. That night, Kazumi, Kotori, and Neko studied hard together to prepare for the exam the next day. The next day was the modern Japanese exam, and the students worked through the test with serious focus. A few days later, the results were announced. Kazumi approached Ryota and said that if she ranked second, she wanted a reward from him. The reward she had in mind caught him completely off guard. Ryota was shocked and firmly refused. When the results were revealed, it turned out that Neko ranked first and Ryota ranked second. The outcome surprised everyone. Ryota thought that if Neko had never lost her memory, she would probably be incredibly smart. Kotori wondered aloud whether Neko would ask Ryota for a reward since she had earned the top rank. Neko innocently mentioned a request that made Ryota certain she did not fully understand what she was saying. Kazumi did not object, since Neko had fairly beaten her. Kazumi then reminded Ryota of his promise to take them to the beach. They all went to the beach together. Neko was completely captivated by the beautiful scenery. Ryota commented that Kotori probably should not have come along because her exam score had been very low, but she had begged to join them because she did not want to be left alone and bored. While they were there, Ryota caught himself noticing Kotori and Neko in a way that made him feel awkward, and he quickly tried to look away. He asked Neko why she was crying when she saw the ocean, even though this was already her second visit to the beach. Kazumi asked Ryota what he thought about her swimsuit. He made a careless remark in his head, and Kazumi, sensing what he was thinking, reacted by kicking him. Ryota admitted that she had guessed correctly, which only made her more annoyed. Later, while Naoko and Ryota were in the water, a large wave hit them and caused part of Naoko's swimsuit to come loose. Ryota panicked and helped her fix it as quickly as possible. After that, they relaxed on the beach together. Ryota suddenly remembered that he had meant to check a small detail on Naoko earlier, but had completely forgotten. Naoko, meanwhile, wondered why she felt a strange sense of warmth inside. As they spent time together, they realized they were experiencing a kind of happiness they had never felt before. Naoko thanked Ryota and said she wanted to return to the beach with everyone again someday. Ryota promised that he would take them there again in the future. Meanwhile, Chisato was in a meeting with the higher-ups. He proposed deploying Valkyria. Valkyria was an S-rank witch, and there were concerns that Chisato might not be able to control her if she went out of control. Chisato argued that they were running out of time, and that Valkyria's magic could restore #1107 without failure. Although the plan carried serious risks, Chisato explained that he had prepared a monitoring team of 7 A-rank witches with strong defensive abilities. The higher-ups did not approve the plan, but Chisato had already taken matters into his own hands and sent Valkyria out. Once released, Valkyria appeared delighted. It was later revealed that she had already eliminated all of her former companions. The police arrived and blocked Valkyria's path. They wanted to question her about the discovery of multiple bodies in the park, and asked her to turn herself in. Valkyria had just felt a sense of freedom after eliminating the fellow witches who had been troubling her, and she now prepared to treat the officers in front of her as nothing more than a warm-up. She activated her magic and a strong gust of wind swept toward her position. The officers had no idea what she was about to do. Moments later, she unleashed her antimatter magic. A massive explosion followed and engulfed Mount Tsurugamin in flames. People nearby panicked at the sight, while Valkyria reacted with visible excitement. Several officers near the bodies assumed the explosion was caused by a volcanic eruption from Mount Tsurugamin. Amid the chaos, one of the bodies suddenly showed signs of life. When she noticed her damaged clothing and the condition she was in, she realized that Valkyria had likely attacked her. Taking advantage of the confusion, the girl quietly left the area. Meanwhile, Kazumi was shocked after reading online news reports about the eruption at Mount Tsurugamin. She wondered if Valkyria could be responsible, and Kana felt certain that Valkyria was behind it. Valkyria was known as the highest-level hybrid, capable of using 8 different types of magic. Kazumi could not understand how Valkyria was outside the lab when she was supposed to be in a dormant state. Kana suspected that Valkyria might have discovered their whereabouts. Ryota reflected that if a witch as powerful as Valkyria chose to attack them, no strategy would be enough to guarantee their survival. At the same time, senior officials were holding a meeting with Chisato. They questioned how Chisato could take responsibility for such a serious incident caused by the explosion. They viewed him as lacking competence, believing that even his life could not make up for the damage done. They expressed deep disappointment, especially because they had placed high expectations on him. Elsewhere, the witch who had regained consciousness boarded a bus in search of the observatory. She wanted to confirm whether Valkyria's earlier claim was true. Before leaving, Valkyria had mentioned that 4 witches were still staying in the observatory room. The girl hoped that she would truly find those 4 witches there. When she arrived, she knocked on the door and stepped inside. She was startled to see everyone lying on the floor, covered in what appeared to be blood. She shook Kazumi gently, and Kazumi quickly realized that the visitor was not Valkyria. She then signaled for her friends to wake up. It turned out that Kazumi had instructed everyone to pretend to be dead. She believed that if Valkyria came to finish them off, Valkyria would leave after assuming they had already died from running out of pills. Ryota had found this confusing because he would not die from the lack of pills, but Kazumi reasoned that if he were the only one still alive, Valkyria would certainly target him. The witch introduced herself as Hatsuna. Naoko and Kazumi recognized her immediately because Hatsuna had been their friend back in the lab. Kazumi was surprised that a Ranka witch like Hatsuna had come to the observatory. Hatsuna explained that she had arrived with Valkyria to retrieve someone identified as #1107. Naoko and the others were alarmed at the mention of Valkyria. Hatsuna reassured them that Valkyria had gone elsewhere for the moment. Kazumi felt slightly relieved. Kana asked who #1107 was, but Hatsuna admitted that she did not know the details of the plan. She had found the observatory purely by coincidence. Hatsuna then questioned whether it was wise to involve a normal boy in such a dangerous situation. Kazumi responded that it was not a problem because Ryota was willing to risk his life for them. Hatsuna asked about Kotori, saying she had never seen her before. Kotori introduced herself and greeted Hatsuna politely. Kazumi then asked whether Hatsuna had any pills left. Hatsuna admitted that she had intentionally come to the observatory because she had already run out. Kazumi was troubled by this, knowing it meant they would now have to share their limited supply. Ryota found Kazumi's reaction surprising, remembering that she had once refused to share pills with anyone. Kana suggested going to the hot spring to wash off the paint covering her body. Kazumi invited Hatsuna to join them, while asking Ryota to clean the floor. The girls headed to the hot spring together and enjoyed the relaxing water. During their time there, Hatsuna casually commented on Kazumi's small chest and then compared it to Kotori's, noting the difference in a teasing way. Kotori asked Hatsuna not to be so rough. Neko noticed the marks on Hatsuna's body and asked about them. Hatsuna explained that Valkyria had defeated her earlier and that her wounds had not fully healed yet. Kotori asked what type of magic Hatsuna possessed. Hatsuna explained that her magic was regeneration. Even if her body was severely damaged, she would not die, but she could still die if she was ejected or ran out of pills. Kotori found this ability remarkable. Hatsuna then asked whether Ryota was the one who had saved Kazumi and the others. Neko said that without Ryota, they would have died a long time ago. Hatsuna wondered if they truly trusted him. Kazumi replied that Hatsuna would understand if she spent enough time with Ryota, and Hatsuna became interested in seeing that for herself. After Ryota finished taking a bath, he heard Hatsuna shouting for help from the top of the tower. He was confused about what she was doing up there. Hatsuna explained that she had gone up just to enjoy the view, but then realized she could not get back down. She asked Ryota to help her descend safely. Ryota quickly went over and climbed the tower. He asked what she had actually been trying to do. Hatsuna had not expected him to come so quickly. Ryota reached out his hand to guide her down. Suddenly, Hatsuna's foot slipped, and she began to fall. Ryota instantly remembered the moment when Kuroneko had once fallen. Without hesitation, he jumped and grabbed Hatsuna's hand to stop her from dropping. One of Ryota's hands managed to hold onto Hatsuna, while his other hand gripped a metal pole. Unfortunately, a bolt on the pole came loose, making their position even more dangerous. Ryota told Hatsuna not to let go of his hand. Hatsuna said that Ryota had passed her test, and she began to believe that he was truly as kind as everyone had said. She suggested that he should release her because her magic allowed her body to regenerate, so she would survive the fall. Ryota called that idea foolish. He refused to let her go and believed that she was only saying that to protect him. He was determined not to release her hand, even if they both ended up falling. Hatsuna wondered what they could possibly do in that situation. Ryota admitted that he planned to swing her toward the balcony. He knew the landing would not be smooth, but he believed it was far better than letting her drop. Once both his hands were free, he planned to climb up using a nearby pipe. Hatsuna questioned what would happen if the pipe came loose as well. At that point, Ryota was exhausted and could barely think clearly anymore. Ryota swung Hatsuna back and forth, and on the third swing, he launched her toward the balcony. Hatsuna managed to grab onto the edge and pulled herself up. She felt relieved that she had avoided falling from such a height. However, the pipe Ryota was holding onto suddenly broke and fell. In that instant, Kotori teleported in and rescued Ryota. She was thrilled that her magic had worked perfectly to save him. Neko explained that Kana had foreseen a vision where Ryota would fall to his death. Neko felt relieved that they had arrived just in time to prevent it. Ryota realized that Kotori's teleportation magic must reset kinetic energy when used. Otherwise, at least one of them would not have survived. Hatsuna grew curious about the magic Kotori had used and admitted that she had just learned that people with abilities like that truly existed. Ryota then asked about Hatsuna's magic, and Kazumi explained that Hatsuna possessed regenerative abilities. Ryota finally understood that Hatsuna had been telling the truth earlier. Hatsuna apologized for testing Ryota. He did not make a big deal out of it because they had both made it out safely. Hatsuna felt deeply moved by his response. She realized that she had developed strong feelings for Ryota and openly expressed her affection toward him, which Kazumi thought was outrageous. Hatsuna then showed her feelings in a bold and unexpected way, surprising everyone around them. Not long after that, the sound of an explosion was heard. Kotori tried to calm Neko, who looked upset. Kotori followed Neko when she walked away. Ryota went after Neko as well because he was worried about her, and Kazumi followed Ryota. At that moment, Hatsuna began to understand the complicated relationships between them. The next day, Ryota went to see Kogoro. Kogoro expressed his sympathy over what had happened to Nanami. Ryota was surprised that Kogoro still remembered Nanami, even though he had not been within Nanami's field of vision before. Ryota explained that Neko and the others would eventually suffer the same fate as Nanami if they did not receive more pills. Kogoro explained that the reason the witches' bodies deteriorated was due to the formation of digestive protease enzymes inside their bodies. The pills worked by suppressing those proteases. Based on a thesis written by an old friend about protease, Kogoro believed that it could accelerate the production of the pills and complete them within a month. Unfortunately, that plan was no longer useful because their current supply would only last 1 week for 5 people. Kogoro then told Ryota that he would have to make a difficult choice. After that conversation, Ryota left. Kogoro reflected on the brilliance of the person who had written the thesis. It turned out that the author of the thesis was Chisato. Chisato had once stated that he had only one goal in life, which was to uncover the truth behind the mystery of life itself. To achieve that goal, he did not care what sacrifices had to be made, even if it meant risking the fate of the entire universe. Meanwhile, Valkyria was quietly enjoying the scenery when Chisato approached her. He questioned why she was doing something that attracted so much attention. Valkyria remarked that Chisato had been incredibly cruel for carrying out those terrible experiments, and in her view, he had taken away her humanity. Chisato treated it as nothing more than part of his duty. Valkyria wondered if he was not afraid of her at all and even admitted that she intended to seek revenge one day. Instead of responding calmly, Chisato struck her and demanded to know why she had used Aptonator without permission. Valkyria was shocked by his reaction. She began to cry and pleaded for him not to hate her. She confessed that she cared deeply for Chisato. Chisato remained convinced that Valkyria knew where #1107 was located. At the same time, Kazumi and the others were gathered in the observatory room. Kana wondered if Ryota had been summoned by Kogoro that day. Neko felt a strange tightness in her chest whenever she thought about Ryota, though she did not understand why. When Ryota arrived, they immediately asked about the research results. He explained that Kogoro had found a way to shorten the time required to produce the pills, but only by 1 month. Kazumi and Kotori felt that this information was no longer useful since they believed their time was already up. However, Kana pointed out that if only one person took the pill, that person might survive. That meant if one of them could hold on and obtain it, she could live. This was the option Kogoro had mentioned earlier. Kazumi suggested drawing lots to decide. Hatsuna questioned whether everyone would truly be prepared to face the next day if they lost. She felt that she was only a burden and had no right to participate, so she quietly left the room. Hatsuna had 24 pills that she had gathered from friends who had fallen during Valkyria's attack. She had come to the observatory hoping to collect more, only to realize that it was no longer possible. Neko chose not to participate in the drawing because she felt she did not need the pill. For her, it was enough if at least one of them could live on and grow old. Kazumi was surprised to hear that, especially since Neko's own life was also at stake. Ryota, however, was not surprised at all by Neko's words. Kotori also refused to join the drawing, believing that she should have passed away long ago. Kana felt the same, knowing she would not be able to live on her own anyway. The three of them encouraged Kazumi to be the one who should continue living. Kazumi could not accept that decision. She did want to live, but she could not bear the thought of surviving at the cost of someone else's life. Instead, she chose to focus on enjoying what they believed would be their final summer together that week. Ryota realized that this had become their shared decision, and the only thing left for them now was the device that served as their guide. Kazumi and the others decided to make a toast to their last summer. Kotori brought juice for everyone, but she accidentally spilled it onto Neko. Kotori quickly apologized and helped Neko clean up. She was surprised to realize that Neko did not have spare clothing to change into. Neko explained that she did not have any extra clothes left. Ryota felt embarrassed as he glanced toward Neko while she was tidying herself up, and he noticed a small mole on her chest that caught his attention. He approached her carefully and came to a sudden realization that Neko was actually Kuroniko. He had never imagined that she was still alive. Ever since they were children, Ryota had liked Neko. She loved looking at the stars, and because of that, he grew to love them too. They used to spend many nights watching the stars together. Ryota had once wished that those moments could last forever, but he had believed that he was responsible for her death during the incident years ago. Overcome with emotion, Ryota began to cry after realizing that Neko was his childhood friend. Neko did not understand why he was so emotional. Later that night, Ryota apologized for losing control of his feelings. He explained that the mole he remembered seeing long ago had shifted slightly as Neko's body had changed over the past 10 years. He was now completely certain that she was the same girl from his childhood. Neko apologized because she could not remember anything from her past. Even so, she expressed that no matter what happened, she wanted to stay by Ryota's side. Ryota understood and suggested that they start creating new memories together from that day forward. Not long after, the sound of a helicopter echoed through the air as it flew in their direction. Ryota rushed inside and alerted everyone that a helicopter was approaching. Panic spread quickly. He urged them to run toward the mountains, but before they could move, Valkyria suddenly appeared and greeted Neko. Valkyria arrived at the observatory room and greeted Neko, but Neko did not recognize her at all. Valkyria had not expected that Neko would completely forget about her. Ryota asked if the girl was Valkyria. She looked irritated and firmly introduced herself as Mako, warning Ryota not to call her Valkyria. Not long after that, Chisato entered the room and ordered #1107 Kotori to come with him. Valkyria looked genuinely happy to see Chisato and immediately hugged him. Chisato made it clear that he would not let Kotori escape again because, in his view, Kotori's life belonged to him. Kazumi began to fear that this might be the end for all of them. Ryota approached Chisato, trying to talk to him calmly. Ryota even dropped to his knees and begged to be spared. He explained that he only helped the witches out of sympathy and had never wanted to be involved in any conflict. From behind, Hatsuna had been quietly watching everything. She had the chance to run away, but she chose to stay and help her friends. She planned to press the shutdown switch on Valkyria's neck. Hatsuna rushed forward and grabbed Valkyria's head, but she could not find the switch she was looking for. In an instant, Valkyria used her magic to strike Hatsuna down. Ryota and the others were stunned by what they saw. Valkyria seemed confused because she believed she had already eliminated Hatsuna earlier along with the other witches. Chisato explained that Hatsuna would not truly die unless she was properly ejected. Valkyria then asked Chisato for permission to press Hatsuna's shutdown switch. Chisato allowed it, worried that Hatsuna might cause trouble if she remained alive. Before Valkyria could do it, Ryota stopped her. He asked Chisato why he could not let the girl live the way they wished. Chisato responded coldly that there was no reason to let them live, because allowing them to survive would only create hidden threats in the future. Ryota asked whether Chisato had ever considered how the witches must have felt. Chisato replied by asking whether Ryota had ever thought about the insects he had stepped on without care. Ryota argued that the witches were not insects, but human beings just like anyone else. Chisato believed that every life had its own place, and that the only truly sacred life was one's own. Seeing no point in continuing the conversation, Chisato ordered Valkyria to eliminate everyone except #1107. Valkyria hesitated when it came to harming Neko, but Chisato forced her to follow his command. With no other choice, Valkyria prepared to fire her magic. Suddenly, Kotori threw herself forward to protect her friends. Kotori told everyone to run, but Chisato quickly struck her down and aimed a gun at her. He warned Kotori not to resist and demanded that she come with him. Neko reacted by destroying Chisato's gun with her magic and pleaded with him not to hurt Kotori. Valkyria was furious to see Neko injure Chisato. Chisato ordered Valkyria to deal with Neko for interfering. Valkyria apologized because she had to attack Neko and launched her magic toward her. At the last second, Ryota pushed Neko out of the way. The attack hit Ryota instead and he collapsed with severe injuries. Neko, Kazumi, and Kotori cried out and rushed toward Ryota. He was barely able to speak and said that there were lives more important than his own. They broke down in tears as they saw him lying there, powerless. Ryota apologized because he could no longer protect them. As his strength faded, Ryota suddenly saw the image of Nanami in front of him. The figure explained that she was only a memory stored within Ryota's mind, programmed to appear when he was close to death. Ryota realized that his time was running out. Kazumi grew even more distressed as she watched Ryota losing consciousness from blood loss. Nanami told him that she had rid Chisato's memories and knew which witches he feared the most. The first was Kotori, and the second was Neko. In fact, Neko was actually stronger than Valkyria, but her power was unstable because no one could control it. That was why the researchers had sealed her power. At the time, Neko had been on the verge of failure and death, and the only way to handle the situation had been to take a major risk. Not long after that, Ryota closed his eyes, no longer able to hold on. Overcome with anger, Kazumi tried to attack Chisato, but he struck her down and pinned her to the floor. Neko could not accept seeing Kazumi treated that way, so she unleashed her magic toward Chisato. Valkyria commented that no matter how much power Neko released, she could only destroy physical objects. Soon after, Neko's ability shut down temporarily, preventing her from using magic. Kazumi crawled forward and said that none of them had ever wanted to become witches, and that Chisato had turned them into this, causing them to lose precious parts of their lives. Neko began to cry, wishing she had the strength to protect her friends. In a faint voice, Ryota said that Neko actually did have that power, and that it was even greater than Valkyria's. Neko did not understand what Ryota meant. Ryota also mentioned that Nanami had told him how to remove the magical seal, which could be done by pressing the top button on Naeko's harness. Chisato allowed Ryota to press it and confidently believed that Naeko would dissolve and die as a result. However, Ryota could not bring himself to press the button because doing so would put Naeko's life at serious risk. Chisato then ordered Valkyria to eliminate everyone. Valkyria apologized to Naeko because she had to follow Chisato's command. She activated her magic, and at that moment, Naeko and the others had already accepted what they thought would be their end. Unexpectedly, Valkyria's magic suddenly stopped working. Out of nowhere, a group of people arrived to capture Chisato. They had discovered the location through the GPS signal coming from a device in Ryota's pocket. Miki explained that whenever the initializer appeared, all magic in the area was neutralized. In a shocking turn, Chisato shot the initializer and immediately disappeared, taking Kotori along. Miki criticized the initializer for failing to stop Chisato from escaping. The initializer, in return, blamed Mako for not informing her that Chisato and the others were capable of teleporting. At the same time, Naeko and Kazumi realized that Ryota was no longer breathing. They were overwhelmed with grief. Kazumi felt that her life had no meaning without him, and Naeko was even willing to give up her own life if it meant Ryota could live. Suddenly, Hatsuna arrived and said there was still a chance. She admitted that she could heal Ryota, but using that ability would cause her body to dissolve. Hatsuna felt indebted to Ryota because he had saved her at the tower, and without him, she would never have received the pills that kept her alive. Hatsuna used her regenerative magic to heal Ryota's wounds. Ryota's injuries began to recover, but Hatsuna's body immediately started to break down. Even after her sacrifice, Ryota's heart had not started beating again. Hatsuna lost her strength completely, and her body fully dissolved. She never expected her end to feel so sudden and heartbreaking. Kazumi could not believe that even after Hatsuna's sacrifice, Ryota still had not regained consciousness. Naeko quickly gave Ryota rescue breaths, while Kana instructed Kazumi to perform chest compressions. Together, Naeko and Kazumi did everything they could to bring him back. Finally, Ryota regained consciousness. Kazumi immediately embraced him, and Naeko felt immense relief seeing him alive again. Ryota was confused because he believed he had already died. Kazumi confirmed that he really had. Kana then explained that Hatsuna had saved his life. Ryota was shocked when he saw what remained of Hatsuna's body. He could not understand why she had chosen to sacrifice herself in his place. Miki stated that she intended to eliminate all witches. Ryota did not understand who Miki truly was. Miki and her companions were part of Hexenjagd, a resistance group working to stop the laboratory's operations. Ryota questioned why the witches had to be killed when they had done nothing wrong. Miki explained that the Drasil inside the harness would continue to grow as long as the witch was alive. Drasil were slime-like organisms that would eventually hatch and consume their hosts, turning them into dangerous creatures. These creatures would then survive by attacking humans. Ryota and the others were stunned by this information. Miki added that Kotori was the most frightening case among them. Meanwhile, Kotori woke up in an unfamiliar place, and Chisato called her by the name Rina. Kotori did not understand who Rina was. In the past, Rina had been Chisato's younger sister. Ryota had once been gravely ill and passed away. His body had been damaged beyond repair, but his brain and consciousness remained intact. Ryota had attempted an experiment to bring Rina back to life, but it had failed. One day, Chisato met with the top officials of the lab. They had a goal to create a version of humanity that would become the dominant rulers of the planet. In their effort to form a perfect life form, they discovered the existence of a grain found within one out of several thousand Drazils inside the bodies of witches. Kotori's original body was indeed Rina's body, and Kotori herself was a human living on Earth who had been created by aliens. Chisato explained that humans on Earth had been created by aliens, a conclusion reached after studying ancient ruins. Those aliens had also created a method to reset Earth back to the genetic state of humanity, and the switch designed to eliminate all humans was Kotori. At the same time, Miki explained that if the grain inside Kotori's body were to hatch, all living cells would melt away, and Earth would become a lifeless planet. Ryota found it difficult to accept those words right away. Miki admitted that she and the others had once been part of the lab. She eventually discovered the true purpose behind the lab's work, which was why she had attacked a lab transport vehicle in an attempt to eliminate Kotori. However, another vehicle had been caught up in that incident, and that was the event that led to Akane's death. Kazumi realized that if all of this was true, then all of them would eventually die. Ryota refused to let things end that way, especially since the Drasil would not hatch so quickly. Miki could not confirm when the Drasil would hatch. It could be in 1 or 2 years, or it could even be the next day. Ryota pointed out that the witches had run out of pills, with the remaining supply only lasting for 1 week. In his view, the resistance was no different from Chisato. Ryota refused to give up hope and asked the witches not to lose faith. Initializer explained that the Drassel would not possibly hatch within a week. What mattered most at that moment was finding #1107. Unfortunately, Miki did not know Chisato's current location. Ryota reassured everyone that he would find where Chisato was. He then asked Kazumi to hack into the system and locate him. Kazumi, confident in her abilities, began breaking into the lab's system to trace Chisato's location. Ryota proposed a deal. In exchange for finding Chisato's location, he and his friends wanted to accompany Miki. Miki's group had previously tried to hack Chisato's data, but it had been protected by a magical barrier. Kazumi was certain that she could bypass that protection. With no other option, Miki agreed to the arrangement. Kazumi began her work. It turned out that Chisato's data had been erased by a witch on the lab's side. Kazumi fought against the magical interference using her own abilities to restore the data. During that time, Miki stated that she did not mind if Ryota and the others joined her, but she still intended to eliminate #1107. Not long after, Kazumi finished and revealed that Chisato's location was at the lake where they had once fought Kikako. Chisato owned a house there under his mother's name. Ryota praised Kazumi's incredible skills, and they immediately headed there by helicopter. Ryota asked Kana to wait in the observation room and promised that he would bring Kotori back. He felt deeply grateful to Hatsuna and promised that he would not waste the life Hatsuna had given him. Meanwhile, Chisato told Kotori that he had placed Rina's brain into the grain located in Kotori's spine. It was supposed to bring Rina back to life, but it had not worked as expected. Because of that, he planned to move the grain into a new vessel. This would mean Kotori's life would end. Chisato stated that no life other than his own had any meaning to him, but Rina's life was different. He was determined to revive Rina, no matter how many lives had to be sacrificed. He even admitted that Valkyria's life meant nothing to him. Kotori found this shocking, especially because Valkyria cared deeply for him. Chisato explained that he had once saved Valkyria's life, but Valkyria had misunderstood his intentions. He had only saved her because he needed her for his plan. He did not have any feelings for Valkyria at all. Valkyria overheard everything Chisato said. She already understood the truth, and she could only cry while still caring for him. Suddenly, Kotori cried out in pain. Chisato did not expect the Drassel to begin hatching so soon. A beam of light emerged from Kotori's body and shot upward, spreading into the atmosphere. The light was called Ain Sof Or, the light that governed life itself. Initializer explained that if the light covered the entire Earth, all life would disappear. Miki realized that they might be too late, but Initializer said that this was still better than billions of people losing their lives without knowing the cause. Ryota grew extremely worried about Kotori as the light continued to expand, gradually covering the atmosphere. The helicopter carrying Ryota and the others landed near the lake. At that moment, the light of Ain Sof Or had already spread across the atmosphere. Miki believed everything was already too late, but Ryota urged his friends to move toward Kotori's location instead. He reminded Kazumi and Neiko to be careful. Unexpectedly, Kazumi and Neiko deliberately knocked Ryota unconscious because they did not want to put his life in danger. The two of them planned to rescue Kotori on their own. They suspected that she was being held in an underground room. Meanwhile, Chisato explained to Kotori that Ain Sof Or was a mechanism created by extraterrestrial beings to reset life in that world. The council's goal was to revive those beings and create a new race to rule the planet, and the witches had been created for that purpose. Chisato admitted that he was not interested in the council's ambition, but the most important part of his own plan was to bring Rina back to life. Kotori believed that Chisato would continue experimenting on other witches, and she refused to allow that to happen. Kotori decided to eject herself. She believed that her death would be meaningless if it could not protect others. If her body dissolved completely, the light in the sky and Yggdrasil would disappear. Chisato dismissed her decision as pointless, saying that only a fool would sacrifice themselves for others. Kotori calmly replied that all she wanted was for the people she loved to be able to smile. She did not mind being called foolish. With a gentle smile, she pressed the eject button. At the same time, Ryota regained consciousness and was shocked to see that the light had already vanished. Initializer suspected that something had happened to #1107 because Ain Sof Or had disappeared. Miki had no intention of wasting this opportunity. At that moment, Kana received a vision about Kotori. Kazumi and Neiko entered the underground room in Chisato's house. As soon as they saw Chisato and Valkyria, they chased after them and demanded to know where Kotori was. Chisato stated that Kotori had already died. He claimed that she had interfered with his research and that her death had been in vain. Kazumi could not accept hearing Kotori spoken of in that way. Chisato then handed them over to Valkyria. Valkyria explained that not every life was equal because each person had a different role. She invited Naoko to come with her. Kazumi was confused about why Valkyria seemed so fixated on Naoko. Naoko refused the offer, but Valkyria insisted that she only wanted to save her. Valkyria then rendered Naoko unconscious. When Kazumi tried to help Naoko, Valkyria attacked her. It was then revealed that Naoko was Valkyria's younger sister. At that moment, Ryota entered the underground area but struggled to find his way. Suddenly, the shadow of Nanami appeared and showed him the correct path. Ryota ran toward a room, and when he opened the door, he was shocked to see Kotori's body beginning to dissolve. He urged Kotori to hold on and asked what had really happened. Kotori smiled and explained that she had ejected herself because it was the only way to save everyone. Ryota said that it meant nothing for others to survive if she had to die. Still smiling, Kotori said that was not true. The time she had spent with Ryota and the others had been so joyful that she felt truly happy, and because of that, she did not feel sad at all. Kotori asked Ryota to stop her older brother, Chisato. She explained that everything Chisato had done was meant to bring her back to life. Ryota did not fully understand what she meant. Kotori asked him to pass along a message to Chisato, asking him to stop hurting others. Before she completely dissolved, Kotori thanked Ryota and asked him to look after their friends. Ryota broke down in tears as he lost Kotori. Nanami's shadow appeared again, surprised that Kotori had realized that she was Chisato's younger sister. Nanami reminded Ryota that it was not the time to cry. Ryota quickly left the room. Elsewhere, Kogoro was still curious about the mysterious light that had illuminated the atmosphere, finding the phenomenon astonishing. He noticed that his research process had been completed and believed that a miracle was about to occur. Ryota ran through the underground corridor and found Kazumi lying on the floor. He shouted to wake her. Kazumi explained that she had been attacked by Valkyria. She warned him that both Valkyria and Chisato were extremely dangerous and asked him to save Naoko. Kazumi did not want Ryota to worry about her and told him to stay strong. She urged him to leave immediately because he was the only one who could save Naoko. Although it was painful to leave Kazumi in critical condition, Ryota forced himself to go in order to help Naoko. After he left, Kazumi quietly reflected that she had never been able to express her feelings. She regretted that she would not have the chance to experience the future she had once imagined, but she was grateful that she had at least known what it felt like to fall in love. Kana then received a vision about Kazumi and realized that if things continued this way, Naoko would also die. Kana asked someone to press her eject button, and shortly afterward, Hatsuna approached her. Meanwhile, Ryota continued searching for Naoko. Nanami's shadow appeared again and guided him in the right direction. Nanami could only lead him as far as that point. Ryota thanked her. In return, Nanami asked Ryota to promise that he would not lose his life. At the same time, Valkyria was walking while carrying Naoko in her arms. She felt that she could not bring herself to kill her own younger sister, yet Chisato's order was absolute to her. Valkyria remembered the incident from the past. Back then, her body had started to melt, and the situation had already become dangerous. Chisato had rushed out of the lab to approach her. The lab staff had warned him not to go outside because he could be exposed to radiation, but Chisato still went out to help Valkyria. Since that day, Chisato's life had become incredibly important to her. Valkyria kept walking while carrying Naoko when Chisato stepped in front of her. He warned Valkyria to kill Naoko, saying that Naoko was a failed product who did not deserve to live. Valkyria looked hesitant to do it. Chisato then asked her to put Naoko down because he would eject Naoko himself. Just as Chisato was about to press the eject button, Ryota suddenly arrived and kicked Chisato in the head. Ryota was furious and said that Chisato was the one who did not deserve to live for playing carelessly with people's lives. Ryota could not forgive him for what had happened to Kazumi and Kotori. Naoko felt devastated when she heard that her two friends had died. Chisato showed no concern over whether Ryota forgave him or not because he admitted that he had taken many lives.